Yo, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Uncouth Radio. We are in the house, and the house is packed. We got some special guests in the building with us tonight. We want to have a very dope, important conversation with some very dope people, in my opinion. We got special guest Cameron Forbes, musical artist, singer extraordinaire, songwriter. You may have heard his voice and don't even know it. Have you ever heard that song Taste? Ooh, ooh, ooh. That's Cameron singing it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the voice y'all heard on Fight It Taste. But he's also just a good overall dude, one of my good friends who I love and enjoy having conversations with. So he's here to have this conversation with us today. To my left, y'all seen this nigga before. This is Kuni Ii, my first ever friend that I made in elementary school, known him since kindergarten. He's here to, kick up some dust with us. It's always good when he comes to the show. We missed you, man. It's been a minute. We got Ron and I'm Black y'all over to my far left in studio with us. And then, on satellite, via satellite, we got Q Belafonte, we got Quincy, and we got Sam Hogan. What up, Danielle? So we're going to, let's just jump right into it. All right? Let's just jump right into it, man. I hear a lot of talk about, the lack of unity between Black men. And we know that some of it has been about the lack of unity between Black straight men, Black gay men, and Black straight men in the Black LGBTQ community. I want to jump into that and see how we could bridge that gap. So, Cameron, I'll start with you. Tell me some of your thoughts and what you think about this. And we'll start there. Just tell me what you think about the premise, and I'll go around and ask everybody the same thing.
Yeah, hey, pleasure to be here. Pleasure to see y'all. For me, if we're talking about Black male unity as it pertains to, I guess we're talking about sexual orientation. So I identify as queer, and I've had an interesting kind of like story because I grew up. Most of my friends are Black men are straight. They identify as straight and they're cisgendered. And as I became more comfortable in my sexual identity, I started to see that there's a lot of, to be honest with you, I think the first word that comes to mind is shame and fear and understanding someone who may be attracted to men. It's I don't know. It's like it's hard for me to. It's a big topic for me to kind of just digest by myself. But I think a lot of the reasons that there's a lot of a fear and shame is just because of the unknown, right? It's like we see someone we don't identify with, and there is this idea that they're other, and if they're other, that we have to, bond together to make them feel less than. At least that's how I felt in my life, and I don't know, man. It's just the way that I've gotten over that and through that is like with conversations with you, for instance, when we're on our gigs, it's like when we talk about our common interests, which is the love of music, the love of human connection. That's where I see like the easiest way to heal is to really have compassion and empathy for the other.
Yeah.
It's like that's literally the root of everything is like you and I are no different. We're 99.9% made of the same thing. So like when I hear people who are afraid of those who are queer, it blows my mind because we all live this experience as people of color and we're all othered, honestly. Like we're all the minority. So that's kind of my initial thoughts on that
Okay, I
topic.
like that. And I like because you opened up a few things, like you said, at the bottom baseline, we're all minorities. At the bottom baseline, we're all Black. You know what I'm saying? Regardless if you're a Black man, a Black queer man, Black gay man, Black LGBTQ, Black trans, we're all Black, right? And to me, that should be the baseline to try to start the conversation for understanding. I'm gonna go to Cooney, and you give me your thoughts on the subject because we talk about this stuff often. And I asked you a different question. How can we approach this in a manner in which it will be productive?
You already know that I've never been, I share with you, like a big Dave Chappelle fan, but I think he kind of synopsized, what I'm trying to say, because when he said that, talking about his transgender friend, her response, Daphne, was, I don't need you to something, something, something. You just need to pretty much recognize that I'm having a human experience. And to me, that was the Oprah, boom, you know, that it really was like, you know, we ain't gonna agree on anything. I don't care whether we twins. I don't care. Been knowing you since just can't, that's just not possible. But I feel like that medium point of basic words like sympathy, empathy, compassion, care, you know, is in that real basic premise of just recognize that someone else is really having a real human experience that is full of emotions, love, hate, the same, you know, same as you. It just has a different character's name in their story.
Right. I like that. I like so Ron, we know you are all things black.
Right.
And we know as young straight black men growing up in the hood, let's just all keep it 100. There's some things we all had to evolve from because there was certain language that was acceptable when we was in high school. There was certain language and there were certain things that we said not thinking it was harmful.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? Because in our mind, like, I'm not trying to be harmful. So what I'm saying, yeah. So I've watched you kind of evolve, like, since high school, and even more specifically, like in the last 5 years. So tell me a little bit about your journey and how you were, because I know you said your son was a big part of that, like of educating you. So tell me about some of your evolution to this point to where we can have this conversation.
Well, to not make it really a drawn out story as to how I got here, roughly what it took is for me to sort of put aside that image that we sort of have for what we think or how we think should be. A few years ago, I started doing a little research, got more involved in what was going on with Black folks, started digging into our history, and I started to learn that we were just basically lied to. That for me was the easiest transition into learning how to accept other things. Once you get past that dream of America, which is being sold to us and pushed to us from children, and you can evolve from that, I think your mind can then work towards understanding other people a lot easier. But it starts with education and kind of being indoctrinated on the truth. Ultimately, we're all running around scared of each other. And I think that's kind of the purpose of the TV now is that they're kind of making it to where we don't want to be around other people. Won't get too into things that are current, but just in general, they want us to be separate. The more we do to push and become more unified as a people, stop putting our disagreements at the forefront and move towards that common interest, which is we're Black. We're all going to be treated that same way. I think we can then start to progress and start to have a better conversation and understanding. But for me, ultimately, it's just getting a better knowledge of self.
Appreciate that. Sam, you know, tap in, man. You hear the same thing, same question for you as I had for Ron. Like being a young Black male, straight man growing up in the hood, knowing that we used to do and say wild shit, we used to be reckless when it came to even talking about that community. How did you begin to evolve, and how did you begin to say, hey, I need to adjust my behavior? And what made you feel like you should adjust your behavior? Because I know the biggest thing, a lot of dudes be on some, I ain't changing, it's just me, this is how I am. What's one of the things that made you feel like, you know what, I need to adjust my behavior to, you know, to be a little bit better? You muted.
I personally had like 2 major events that happened for me. So first of all, my favorite cousin came out the closet and was gay. And learning how to accept him and his lifestyle and the things that he was doing. And then, but I think still at that time, I didn't really pay too much attention. Like I saw it and I loved him to death and he was still funny and still great. But it wasn't until he died from AIDS where that impact was like, whoa. You know, and it has a certain type of effect on me. And then at that same time, I worked at Disneyland. And when they say Disneyland is the happiest place on earth, they mean it. You know, Disneyland, I think roughly around 30 to 40% of employees are the gay community. And so just kind of having that exposure and started to realize, like, Cameron said it best, was like a human experience, was like starting to realize like, hey, regardless of sexuality, I'm able to share these human experiences. And then what I thought or what I deemed was sin like was like, no, like these are people that are just like me and they think like me, they function like me, were able to do and live, breathe the same things. And so once I kind of had that exposure and that level of inclusion, my mindset started to change a little bit. And then, I mean, the thing is, I can personally say, like, it's not just necessarily a switch. Like, it's still even, and that was when I was like 21, 22. I'm now 39, and I still feel like it's still a learning experience. Like, I'm constantly having to grow and learn and hear from my brothers who, you know, who are of the gay community. So.
Cool. You want to say something? Go ahead.
No, I was just echoing what he said. You know, it was something about when he said that level of inclusion. 30 to 40% of the people, or whatever it is, you know, of Disneyland, like he was saying, and just like really like that level of inclusion. Whether it's in media, how our stories are told, in you know, in our workplace, whatever it is. I think with most things, it is about like that level of inclusion, because as you guys started looking, didn't even know, huh?
Right.
As you thought you was going on one path, you was like, wait a minute.
But they try to keep that away from us. And I don't want to step over Sam when anyone else is speaking, but that's the idea, is that to keep us with blinders on, so we're only focused and kind of seeing things one way. The moment you take those blinders off and start just grasping the fact that everyone's different, everyone's unique, that's kind of the thing of us all being different and unique. Ultimately, though, we want everyone to be just like us. If you don't do this, you don't eat this way, you don't work out, or whatever it is that we do that we see and rationalize as normal, and you don't do that, then you're now what? Abnormal. So
yeah, you're other.
And that can be fine as well, but it's when you start to act on that thought that it becomes a problem. You know, when we all think of just different things. It changes. But when we start treating people poorly,
I think that goes to Kuni's point too, where he said, like, we can't expect everybody to agree on every single thing.
Right.
But if we can at least respect each other, because even if there's somebody who don't agree with your lifestyle, your orientation, or somebody who don't agree with that, it's not your right to go and act on you're not agreeing, because that's not your place.
Right.
So even, I think baseline, if we can get to that, we can actually affect some real change, because some people really feel like they have the right to try to affect someone's lives because of what they don't believe in, try to affect someone's lives because of what they don't understand, or, you know, try to affect someone's life because they're actually living the life you wish you could live and you don't know how to do it.
But we have that system in place. It's called, if you want to do that, it's called voting. If you want to impact, at least here in the United States, if you want to impact someone's life,
yeah, you can do it.
That is the arena.
Correct.
to go ahead and with that, vote how you choose.
Correct.
Oh, that's a great comment from Rebecca. She said we have to move from tolerance to understanding, because
humanizing people.
Well, because it shouldn't be about tolerating people.
Correct.
You know what I mean? It shouldn't be about.
That lets you know you still have some sort of something in the background.
There's some prejudice, right? And of course, like, look, we know we all have these biases, but I think what I want to do is I want to start the conversation about us really getting past the biases, to where we can sit like this in a black barbershop, and if a dude is in a black barbershop saying some wild homophobic shit,
we can stand up.
We can stand up and be like, yo, yeah, that's not cool. Like,
you know what was crazy? My Uber ride up over here, bro. Uber ride up over here. Latino guy, gotta give him 5 stars, by the way, whatever his name is. And what you doing? I was telling him, you know, blah 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 about, you know, this is what we talking about. So he shared with me a story where he was in Vegas and they was at an event. One of his homeboys was paying for the event, like it's like pretty much like $750 a person. It's like 15, 16 of them, 15, 16 of them, not a problem. Come on, blah 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 blah. One of the dudes was gay. And he started beaming in on the gay dude. And, you know, my driver was like, nah, bro. You know, and over time, good thing the guy kind of listened and paid attention, because he was like, oh boy, had it popping. He was the filter. He was the attraction. He was and did he not? Without all this, whatever your mind is on about, oh, this is, you know,
right.
That's your ass who think
everybody wants you. Yeah.
That narcissist, you know.
Yeah.
But I do think, and to that point, I think that is one thing that the community can do is get rid of this narcissist.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie, your mama's the only one who told you was cute. No, it's like a certain like narcissism, like you don't think that everybody wants you, that everybody or you just this in time like this for real. And I think that's a part of the for at least the black that narcissism.
Right.
Get out of here, bro.
Man, get over yourself.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it's about. If that's your thing, then you should be thinking about that. But if it's not your thing, like
why
would you be interested in it?
Right.
Because the only time I ever asked, period, someone is when what?
You're interested.
Correct.
Interested.
Correct.
Besides that, what is there for me to?
Yeah. Well, Quincy, let me bring you into the conversation. I know me and you, when we were with my cousin Ronell, he couldn't be here tonight. He was supposed to be here, but he couldn't make it. But me and you, my cousin Ronell was on, and it was interesting because we were on Twitch that night, and Twitch brings a whole different kind of vibe and a whole different audience. But we were on Twitch, and you were talking about how you started adjusting your thinking, and you had started changing your language, and people was attacking you for the why. You know what I mean? And I think that goes to how these conversations can get difficult because you're like, yo, I'm trying to evolve, I'm trying to change. And they like, you only did it because somebody told you to. You didn't do it because you decided on your own to change in your heart. Be like, yeah, but that was the beginning of the work to change. But it was interesting that that's how the conversation went. And that leads me to the next part of it. So tell me how that made you feel. And then tell me, you know, some of the things that you come up against in trying to evolve.
Well, I think I didn't feel any type of way. I get that a lot of people, this is a very sensitive topic. People, it's really hard to have this conversation with a lot of folks because folks are already entering the conversation on the defense. So when folks are already, the conversation is they're already entering on the defense. I expect folks to not even hear me right away. Although my path to get to where I am now might be different than Sam's or anyone else of how I got here. The key point is I saw something had to be changed, and I'm decided to change it, and I got here. When I was younger, I was really homophobic, super homophobic. I identify with being gay with being a pedophile. That to me, that was a connection, and
let me ask you quickly, Quincy, where do you think that came from? I want to dive into that because a lot of people have that perception, right?
Yeah. Well.
Where do you think that connection came from?
There was some experience when I was younger that I knew of, was aware of boys who was molested by older men, and they grew up to be gay. And so that automatically, and so now you got not just like I'm younger, but you got your aunt, your grandma, your uncle that, hey, don't you take him over such and such house. That boy over there act funny. Back then they didn't call it, oh, he over there, he kind of funny. In the neighborhood, it was almost like you could catch gay by a cough or something,
Right.
and I think because of that, I was like really homophobic. The beginning turning point for me was when I was in college, I had a supervisor who was gay, and he was cool. He was like a big brother, and what the turning point is, I knew him so much as a person. Being gay was just a small part of who he was. It was like this is like gay people just not sitting up there thinking about niggas 24/7, having sex with they're people. I mean, as shallow as it may sound, my relationship with him, it was to the point I forgot he was gay. And so then I went to the next phase because now I have a son. and you don't know how your kid is gonna grow up to be. And just like a lot of guys, yeah, I was past the gay part, with George, but with my gay friend. But now I'm like, man, my son grew up to be gay. I don't know what I do. And then I start to see 10, 11-year-olds committing suicide because they didn't know how to deal with their sexuality. And I can't lose a child. So I was like, if my son does turn out to be gay, that's why I commend Dwayne Wade so much. I know people give him a lot of slack for that. And dang, we were saying we saw little man was gay since we noticed it when he was about 3 years old on old videos and pictures. Like, I mean, so, but I was like, that's a father, because no matter what your son, like I want to support my child. I want him to know that my love for him is unconditional. And if he turns out to be gay, then so be it. But what I'm not about to accept is make him feel like I'm not there to the point he want to kill himself. And so that was like the next phase of my growth. And then when he got older, he had a gay friend, and it was like nothing. He's like, yeah, Dad, that's my friend, blah blah blah. He's gay, and it wasn't a big deal to him. And so it was just different phases. I think the next phase that I gotta get out of is that I still use certain slang words that I know. Well, I use a lot of slang words that offend all type of people, but just being more conscious of my language, because working at a elementary school is crazy that I now hear the kids say the things that we used to say to one another, and I'm like automatically correcting, and I'm like, damn, I actually corrected the kid for calling somebody a faggot, which probably 5-10 years ago I wouldn't have even thought of it, but now it's on my conscience to even correct the kid for even call it, because now I wonder, he could be one of them 9 and 10-year-olds that's battling whatever he's going through. So I got to make sure I protect that kid, because who knows? And so just me, it was at just different stages. And I think the most important thing, like I said, is that, no one, people just look at gay people and like they just start there. But I think we just should start like, first of all, this is a human being. This is a person who got many different loves and likes, and that's just like, they just have a preference of who they decide to fall in love with. And that's no different than some chick who likes some thug nigga that killing people. Like shit, I judge her more than I judge a dude who like a dude. So I mean, like I said, it was just different stages. So when folks was coming at me, I get it. It's a sensitive topic. People have family members they want to protect. You don't know folks' backstory, so it's so I kind of took it as it's okay. But I would just definitely tell people, be conscious of more people who are trying to grow, because a lot of folks, what they would do is, if you attack them while they trying to like evolve, they might go back into that shell and go back onto the defense and take it I'm trying to change and these motherfuckers still attacking me, so I might as well just stick to how I was. Like, you gotta be conscious of those type of people as well.
Right, and that brings me actually to my next question. I'm gonna go to you for this, Cam. What do you think are some of the main obstacles to the unity between the straight black man and the LGBT, the blacks in the LGBTQ community? What do you think are some of the biggest obstacles that stop us from bridging this gap?
Well, Quincy, I gotta commend you on your story, man. Like I think part of the answer to this question is what I'm going to say. I think Quincy's taking his time to educate himself on terms and to be exposed to people who are queer is part of this. I think there's a lot of fear that someone who isn't might say the wrong thing, I don't know. I've even heard like, if I get exposed to someone who's gay, that I might turn out as that, which is crazy to me. I think that the biggest obstacle is that fear that like, if I associate myself with someone who is not like me, other people might see that and assume I'm that way. And to that I say bullshit. You know, it's like you love who you love. It doesn't matter who you talk to. So when I hear you say that you're becoming more empathetic to your son, his friends, and you're changing your language, that to me is like, that's a prime example of like why we're here, right? Because that brings us closer together. That allows you to see someone for who they are. Like who I love has no bearing of weight on your experience. And we all have the right to love whoever we want to love. Like that is at the for me, the basis of being human. So when you strip that away from me, it's like, how? What gives you the right? You know? So I think it comes down to like knowing it takes time to retrain your brain to not be homophobic if you have been raised that way. Like I was raised outside Chicago, predominantly black, super heteronormative. Like we're talking like 90s Jordan, like No Limit Soldiers on the radio. Like I had homophobic tendencies too, even though I was in the closet. So I certainly understand that it takes time to relearn that stuff. And so I think that for me, I've had to have a come to Jesus moment with me to look in the mirror and say, like, yo, I am enough. I'm okay. Like, who I love bears no weight on this experience. And others who are relearning my identity, I give them grace. Like, I just do. It's the same way with me, like with pronouns. Like, that's a new learning for me. Like, they, he, him, she, they, like, it's new. And it's just taken me time. And I think that like with people in my life like who are being exposed to the queer community through me, I give them just time and grace. And I think that's what we can give each other, whether you're straight, whether you're cisgender, whether you're queer, gay, it doesn't matter. I think it starts with just like looking me in my eye and saying, yo, I see you, I honor you. You know, that's what I do for others.
Man, and I think it's dope that you said that, and I kind of want to touch on that too, because that is such a huge part of it, right? Like a huge part of it is trying to give each other grace, and because that's why I wanted to have this conversation, because I feel like a lot of the times in these conversations, on both sides, we don't give each other that grace to say our piece. We don't give each other grace to hear each other out. A lot of times we have these conversations, we talking and just waiting for our turn, instead of like having the conversation to understand. Which I think what we're doing here tonight is really trying to have a conversation to understand and to bridge that gap and to say, I see you, to talk to each other and to say, I see you. And you know what? I want to talk about one of the things that you said, Cameron, about, I'm going to tell you one of the biggest obstacles from a straight man's point of view in regards to this conversation is what you said. Like, the first thing that happens when you do take up for somebody that's in the LGBT community, they say, "Oh, nigga, you must be gay," because you.
I have a better question.
Yeah,
I have a much better question. We've been knowing each other since kindergarten. I know what people have said about me to my face and behind my back. So, what was it like for you? I mean, because what was it like for you, whether you knew or didn't know? Because to a certain for years, we didn't even have certain types of conversations because we already already knew. So, yeah.
What was it like for me having a best friend who went through that since elementary school? So for people who don't know,
because you never called me a fag.
No.
But I heard you call other people fags.
Right, and so that's what I mean. So when I was younger, so that's when I say when I was talking about adjusting that lane because I was younger, I wouldn't say it to you because I feel like if I said it to you, it's to be hurtful. When I'm saying to him, it's because we're on the basketball court and I'm just saying some shit on the basketball court. So you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So that's one of the things I was talking about where I said, I had to adjust my thinking because I thought, well, I'm not calling gay people that, so it's not hurtful because I would never call nobody gay that. Right. I call a homie that when I'm on the basketball, you know what I'm saying, on the basketball court on some slang shit. But then I even had to change that and say, I shouldn't say that shit at all. Because regardless of the intent, it's just, that's not a word that should be in my vocabulary. That's not a word I should be using to describe anybody or even using it as a playful insult in slang. Because even using it as a playful insult in slang is perpetuating that that's wrong, that the stigma of that being wrong. So I had to learn that. But back to your question about what was it like, having a best friend in elementary school, because elementary school is before we even know about really what sexuality is. And elementary is just like, Kuni, a little different. and then you can double dutch his ass off. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I was playground king. I was playground king. Ball 2, handball 2.
So we went to elementary school and middle
Right.
school together, which are two very different experiences.
Right.
But in elementary school, it hurt me. It used to really, really hurt me when people treated you like that. Because I knew you. Like, people don't know, he was that, you know how you had that homeboy that after school, you go to their house, or after school, they come to your house, and then the parents all hang out. That was me and him. Like, because my dad was a musician, his dad, fantastic musician, David I, R.I.P., my guy who was a Smokey Robinson saxophone player. You heard him on Distant Lover on the live Marvin Gaye album. Like, his dad is a legend. So we kind of connected on that level before anything else. Like, oh, our dads are musicians, and our pops met, and they clicked up and became best friends. And so he was at my house literally probably
the only friend house, but then I
and vice versa. He was the only friend house that I could go to when I was a kid, right? So it used to kill me that people would not see who you were, because you were just like the coolest nigga to me. I didn't see, you know what I'm saying? It didn't matter to me if he was gay. I was like, he ain't bothering nobody.
Right.
He just a cool dude, and he don't fuck with nobody. He living his life. Like, he's literally just existing, and people are bothering him. So I would have fights over him. He didn't know. You know, I wouldn't bring that shit to him. I would have fights behind him. I'd be beefing with niggas. Be niggas I didn't mess with, because I'm like, yo, leave Kuni alone. Like, then in junior high, the shit changed, because that's when that nigga was on some like, nigga, I got hands.
Right.
So,
So you got a problem? Let's take it.
so we start like, there's this one nigga who won't be named because he's actually Facebook right now. But this one dude would bother Kuni every single day. Like, we on the way to gym. I never forget. We would be on the way to gym every single day, and he would bother Kuni.
Call that nigga.
No, I ain't gonna do it.
My mama still live in the neighborhood.
Yeah. but he would fuck with Kuni and finally one day, I never forget, this nigga Roe just got fed up. He just dropped his backpack. And this was like one of the niggas who was supposed to be like a hoodest gangster nigga that everybody was scared of in the school. He was that dude. This nigga Coon dropped his backpack and just, I'm talking about, he beat the shit out of this dude, like to the point where Coon stopped the wall trying to hit him, because he had the dude up against the wall, and he like fucked his knuckles up. From that day on, nobody said shit to Roe. Like, he didn't have them problems no more. But again, I hated that he even had to go through that. I hated that he even had to do that just for his survival. So that's when, that's why I have a different conversation. I think I have a different outlook on this too, but I think that's why I have different conversations with people when people are like, oh, they chose this. And I was like, I don't know what young black man in the hood would choose the shit I seen this nigga go through every single day just to exist. You know what I'm saying? Like, if he could cut that shit off and stop, he would have, just to stop the way he was being treated.
Stop for what? Your mama still want to screw me? Your girl still want to screw me? Oh, sorry. Wrong show.
This is the right show. But you know what I'm saying? So that's what my experience was. And I think also that experience of having like my first friend end up being a gay man, I think that was one of the things that really informed the way I deal and talk to the community.
Correct.
Because from day one, since 5 years old, I never seen it as an other. So I think that's a lot of it, right? Like, it never was an other to me.
I think that's what kids are getting exposed to now.
Well, yeah, and I think that goes to Quincy's point when he said, my son, well, these kids are getting exposed to stuff way earlier than us, because there's like, my daughter is around mixed races way more than us. When we was kids, it was probably like one white kid in school, white Mike, in the whole school.
School, we had one mixed kid.
One mixed kid.
We had that one mixed
Yeah,
kid.
we had like one mixed kid and one white kid, and maybe 2 Latinos per class. Right now, it's like a 50-50. It's like, and so even my daughter's purview at 9 is totally different than mine was at 9 in regards to dealing with race and to dealing with. We were super ignorant. Yeah, we were both in. Yeah. So yeah, Kuni, to answer your question, that was kind of my experience of having you as my best friend. Like, it hurt me a lot to have people deal, and I think that's one of the things that built up my empathy overall for the community, because I had a direct connection off top to know what people go through. So even though I didn't go through it, and I would never say like me and him went through the same thing. It's not that, but my I think my juxtaposition to his life showed me a whole lot, especially as elementary kids.
That's crazy, because it's just different when you see people, and I've known a few people early on in life that just had empathy like early. Like it didn't really matter what it was, especially when you're a child, you don't really understand the full spectrum of what the issue is. But just to see people, hey, you're sad or you're crying or something, you're my friend, that's a problem. It's just, you know, you got lucky, because when you run into an angel early on, and then that carries on throughout your entire life, you basically just had that like just sitting on your shoulder. So I would hope that definitely meant something to you, because that sounds like a great relationship to have had, you know, or to have, not to have had, to have.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I think that's something that, because like when I talk to Cam, me and Cam have a lot of these conversations, and it's funny because it's not even like on purpose. We kind of just fall into them, but I think a lot of it is just really about. It starts off with our shared experience. That's the crazy thing. It starts off talking about a shared experience, and then it goes into the differences. But when we go into the differences, it's not on no beef shit. It's really on some trying to understand each other more type shit.
Right.
Like literally just trying to get to know each other more. So I want to talk to you about that, Cam. Like,
Yeah.
How has that been for you? Like, because I know you said like recently, because even since I've known you, you've evolved a lot, right? Like since I've known you kind of found yourself. I've been watching your confidence change. I've been watching the way you move.
Thank you.
You know, not physically. I mean, like the way you move spiritually. Like,
not physically.
Stronger. You know what I mean? Yeah, like
yeah.
Swagger, and it's like you good with it. So tell me kind of about that transition and what's helped you with that, and what's helped you with being able to keep these conversations the way you have, man, because you're really good at it.
Therapy. Lots and lots of therapy. I mean, I think I'm actually in a Black men's group for therapy. That's one of the things that I do. And I'm actually there's like 2 queer people in it out of like 8. And we have these conversations. We talk about our shared experiences, and it like boils down always to like, we're all going through the same shit, yo. Like when George Floyd passed, we were all going through it. When like the Capitol riots had it happen, we were all going through it. We talk about relationships and like who's dating who and all that stuff. And it's made me realize like, yo, y'all niggas are just like me. Like there's no difference. And I think that is the beauty in this. And I've just had that exposure to like a lot of different people to see that. But it's taken me time, man. Like I didn't come out, and I actually like to use coming home, because like there's no coming out. I'm coming home into my own self. For me is like what I kind of use. But I came home like later in my like late 20s. And so I had lived this life where I was with women, and then living life like being with men. So I've kind of seen both lives, right? Like I've seen it. And I got the confidence to basically come home, because I always had felt that there was a part of me that was undiscovered. And I didn't want to live a life not really exploring not only my sexual identity, but like my heart, like the things that make me like full, you know? And so like for me, like part of that, like learning and unlearning of like the shame that's surrounding homosexuality, which is another conversation that we should talk about, was taking plant medicine, going to South America, getting out of America where there is this big label culture, and living just as a free person. Like I was like walking around Peru, like, all right, I'm gonna see how it feels to just walk around like a rich white man today. And I was like, yo, like that feels like, yo, I can have this anywhere I go. And it's just been years of reinforcing my brain and know that I'm like powerful. And beyond that, like being Black, I think is the greatest gift like on this earth. Because I don't think you could ever find a group of people where we've been taken from our country and have risen to be the most powerful like man, like with Obama. Like that to me is just the telltale story of kingship. So I think like for me, like I just have become comfortable in myself by living my truth. And it is not easy, because like still there's so much shame and stigma around queerness, and I don't understand it. Like I really don't, because I really think that, I don't know, at the end of the day, how do you discriminate against someone how do you discriminate against someone for who they love? It just doesn't compute in my mind anymore.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that's actually that was in my notes. We were going to talk about that. I wanted to talk about that shame because I know that shame comes from a few different places, right? And that's something that I think we should unpack.
Yeah.
A lot of that shame comes from the Black church, right? Like growing up in the
Right.
Black church, a lot of that shame is literally taught over the pulpit, even though you gonna make sure that they doing your music. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna make sure that they your choir director. You're gonna make sure they head of your music department. Like if you want your shit popping, you're gonna make sure the community is in your church for that. But then you're gonna admonish those same folks that you bring in to run your music program. So I think it's a lot of that, and even a lot of it is in the because me and Ryan had talked about this. A lot of it was in the slavery times as well, right? There's a shame there's a shame that comes from the buck breaking part of it, right? There's a shame that comes from when they would take men from their families and have sex with them in front of their families to take their confidence and to emasculate them, basically. So that coupled with the gospel, that coupled with church, I think that is the crux of where this shame comes from, and it's kind of been built into so many Black folks because so many of us have a foundation in the Black church. And that shame also breeds homophobia because those who are gay feel shame, and then those who aren't gay are homophobic against it because you're kind of taught that that's wrong, right? So to your point where you're asking about the discrimination, I think a lot of it comes from that. And there's only a few pastors that I've seen. There's only a few pastors that I've seen navigate this topic in a meaningful way and in a new way. Chef Crawford at ECM, he deals with
probably got it from
Carl Bean, and also Lance Riley, because like Lance Riley, he even said he just coming out. My wife did a podcast with him. That's her cousin, but he's a big pastor out here too. But he was even saying the church owes an apology to the LGBTQ community. Like that was a big. So when that episode comes, I gotta watch it because I was like, oh shit, like it really threw me. But I was like, damn, when he said it, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. I get it because he was talking about how the church is supposed to be the place where you come to heal your trauma, but we causing trauma. You know what I'm saying? Like we also we're causing trauma to people in these places. And even if you think you're doing it because the Bible says and the word says, like I think like Chef kind of say, he like that ain't my place. It's my place to teach you the Bible, and it's your place to have your relationship with God. Yeah. Oh, good job. Yeah, Wayne Chaney and Antioch, same thing, Sam. So I think there's a few newer pastors who are trying to take a different approach. But to your point, Cam, I think a lot of it is that's where the crux of a lot of that shame and a lot of the discrimination came from. And you know what? It's funny, Cam, you said, I identify as queer. And it's just, a quick aside to the point about us giving each other grace and growing and learning about the language. But I remember 12 years ago, it was wrong to call somebody queer. You know what I'm saying? I remember 12 years to say queer. They were like, what? You know what I'm saying? Or a lot of white men use queer as that's their F word in the white community. Like white straight men say that to white gays, just like their N word. That's like their N word. It's their Q word.
No. Certain things is white male gay agenda language.
Oh, okay.
And there was box. I got you. Ain't got enough time for that.
And I know me and you talked about this, Kuni. But we'll get to that because that's another part of the conversation. But we'll talk about that because that kind of touches on the whole Dave Chappelle shit, right? Cameron. So I know you were about to say something about how we talked about where the shame comes from.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to add to you because you said the church, which to me is actually media, right? Like depending on how you look at it. Like also there's a lot of shame that comes from being gay and on television shows. They're the butt of the jokes. They're overly gays that were represented in media were overly feminized. So like I never saw someone say one more time.
And overly sexualized.
And sexualized and just and made to it's like just for me it's like I never grew up seeing someone who looked like me, sounded like me. And because of that, what I did see, it made me feel like that life was wrong, So like I think it's the church in essence is media, right? It's teaching you, it's outside news teaching you something. So yeah, I just think that's perpetuated. And I saw it at a very young age. Even in like young, like 7, 8 year olds are calling other 7, 8 year olds gay and fag. And it's like, how do you know what you are sexually at that age? So I think it starts in the home, it starts with church, it starts with media. Um, it starts with re-educating, right? And I mean, we're not even talking about sexuality being a spectrum because like there is not just gay. It's a wide range of sexual
Right.
experiences. So like that's a whole nother conversation. But I think that like, yeah, there's I like to think that there's a lot less shame now. Like I feel like the generation that's coming up, like they don't even come out. They're just like, I am what I am. Like leave me
Yeah.
alone. Like
The
which is
younger
I think is
generation don't even
beautiful.
care nothing about like what we're talking about right now.
Right.
Younger generation, bro, don't care nothing about that because they
Right.
gonna do what they gonna do. They ain't gonna do what they ain't gonna do. Period. Point. But
Right.
They wonder why we waste so much time on such
Yeah.
nonsense. You know, it's like why are you even taking the
I'll
time
give
out
them
to
credit
care
for
about
that.
something that because ultimately when you think about it, you know, as fellas we may talk about women and things or men if you're gay, but in general, how much time do you really spend on just like talking about a person's sexual life?
Right.
Like so
Right.
I mean, because it's such a minute thing in your relationship with your actual friends, you know, it should be something where we're comfortable, but we've just been like we're constantly being pushed fear.
Well, and like I said, there's a lot of trauma tied to it.
Right,
Like there's
right.
a lot of trauma tied to it on both sides. Like Cameron said, even in the media, because like I think one of the best things that I saw was Omar in The Wire.
Right.
I think to me that was one of the best characters on television
Right.
because he was the most gangster nigga on the show,
Right.
and he
I
was.
think black men had to see that.
Huh?
Because if you're not in certain areas, because I hear that a lot about in Baltimore, there's certain areas where they're familiar with that, with an Omar type.
Yeah.
You know that hey, you shit. You know what I'm saying? He a killer.
Yeah.
So you know you say something to it if you want, but I don't think everyone's exposed to that. So I think seeing that and then the way Michael kind of portrayed him.
Well, I was gonna say, so to me, the way Michael portrayed it, right? Because it goes to Cameron's point about how, like, or your point even about like how him being gay was like a piece of the whole character,
Right.
right? It wasn't like
And the least concerning piece if his ass come through with that shotgun.
exactly.
I mean, hey, Dane, I mean, we laugh and joke about it because it was funny, but the booty warrior,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that motherfucker was a killer,
yeah, yeah.
and everybody like laugh. I mean, because I think that's what threw everybody off because he was saying what he liked and what it was, but he was like, "I'm a killer too. I'm a gangster too." So
Now that's HBO special change people's lives.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm
What
going
are
to
y'all
college.
talking about?
So there's a dude named Felice Johnson, the booty warrior. That's what he called himself.
that's what he called himself.
He's in jail.
He did an ABC special. He was in jail, and they was talking about how he was like one of the scariest dudes in jail. But basically, like even the cops were scared of him. They were scared to bring him in for the interview
Terrified.
because he was like talking to the interviewer, and he was like, "If I wanted you, I would take your ass, and it ain't nothing you could do about it." And you believed him because you know, like you know.
Hey,
And hey, look, nothing feminine about it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
ain't nothing. Hey, he said, I want. He said,
I like
he
it.
said, he said, I want you. I like it, and then we could do this the easy way or the hard way. Yeah, he said, you know, we can get into this all. I'm a homosexual, whatever, but I'm a killer though.
They need him to steer straight.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think even that changed dudes' perceptions. Like, oh shit, because like Cameron was saying early on in the '80s, the gay black man was always like
Lamar.
damn near like Shanae.
Yeah,
But
was it Police
yeah,
Academy?
Lamar on Police Academy. Yeah, the gay dude on Police Academy. Gay dude on Revenge of the Nerds. It was like the super flamboyant.
Yeah.
Out of, you know, and even though that is one piece of how some gay, that's not, but that's how the portrayal of all black gay men was. Go ahead.
I want to be honest. You know, the first time I ever thought about something gay is when the hood continually goes to jail.
Oh,
Yeah.
To me,
Yeah.
oh,
that
What are you scared of?
is the pure definition, picture of Webster of what gay is. You done spend over 2/3 of your life, depending upon how old you are,
Right.
in jail.
And go back.
but you worried about this flamboyant something up over there. No. See, everybody know what's coming with him.
Right.
With this.
You just gonna come up here.
But see, for me, that is the gayest act ever. The second act is how they sag. Our generation, in our generation, we were a part of the sagging generation, right? That was whether we were allowed to do it or not. It was a different story.
Right.
But it was a completely different sag.
Okay. Fellas on your knees.
Police Johnson talks about dudes that came in jail sagging.
Yep. He said to him that was a sign that they wanted it. He said in jail sagging was actually a signal of I like men.
An ostrich is
yeah, basically that you said an ostrich with his feathers.
Hey, dang. I want to touch on the religious aspect of it, because I think a lot of people has weaponized God against folks when they don't commit that sin. And I remember a time where my friend George, this girl was like preaching to him, like, you going to hell because you gay and blah blah blah. And he said, "How many kids you got, and how many of them happen in wedlock?" And I think that's probably the biggest contradiction with church folks. It's that they love to throw people in hell in the sin they don't participate in. and so I think if folks just mind their own business and allow that person to have their own personal relationship with God, and you focus on yours, I think a lot of churches. I remember you brought up some pastors. I remember being in Noah Jones' church, and he made the point that you actually made. He said, if you look into the Bible, he said, what a lot of church folks like to do, we push people away from God. He said, if there's somebody that you think is struggling with any type of sin or whatever, isn't the point is to bring them closer to God? So by kicking people out of church and all that stuff is a huge contradiction of the Bible that you said that's supposed to be, God's word. And I think that's probably the church is probably one of the biggest contradictories that we have, because folks will go out and they would condemn gay people and throw them in hell, and you check out their little sample resume, and it's like, damn, the gay dude deserves angel wings before you do, player. And so I just think that's a point that a lot of folks really need to just kind of focus on their own personal relationship with God and leave other people's personal relationship. Because to me, that was that was another eye-opening moment for me. It's like, shit, how can I say he going to hell when I'm sitting up here with somebody I ain't married with? Yeah. I got my own sins to focus on. So,
well, let me tell you, most of the time, a lot of us know why they was preaching the way they was preaching.
Uh-oh.
Okay?
Yeah.
No, because I know all different kinds of people since I was young, and I spew nothing. I don't lie often. For real.
I mean, it was a very popular preacher in Atlanta who's no longer with us that, I remember him preaching about homosexuals from the pulpit, and things began to leak out and about his personal activity.
That's protest. What they say? That was the protest money. Like the ones, even like you look at those senators and stuff who are always going hard for the gay laws, they always end up getting busted for
being gay or for prostitution or some other immoral.
Yeah,
that's textbook homophobia.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
isn't that more like a beard or something? Isn't that like a front?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
like, let me make all this noise and throw you up, but a lot of times I'll be like,
and that's how we know. In other words, and then that's how we know.
Right.
That's the same way that same girl keep hitting you. Right. That's how we know.
Somebody said pants.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
His therapy didn't even work.
Yeah, I feel like he is really a pent up.
Right. No. He looks like he's an active porn star right now. Look at him.
Yeah. If you think
Damien.
if you think you could electrocute the gay out of somebody, you definitely a closet.
Yeah.
That could
Hey,
bring therapy.
so I want to talk about this now too. So, Kuni made mention of. I want you to say that sentence again. You said the white gay agenda language. Please say it.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, pretty much. Certain things is white male gay agenda verbiage or language.
Yeah, that don't include black.
Correct.
LGBTQ, right?
Correct.
So I want to talk to you about that because me and you, even before Dave Chappelle,
on various levels,
we had this exact conversation about kind of what he was talking about. So I guess that's why when he was saying in the special, I was like, oh, this is the shit Ro was talking about. Like, this is shit he was telling me about. So basically, just to give everybody a quick rundown, me and Kuni had some conversations. I think one of the biggest ones that I remember most vividly is when during Black Lives Matter, I don't know if y'all remember the banner started coming out, all Black Lives Matter, and it was like the rainbow in it, and it was like the rainbow Black Lives Matter sign, and me and you was talking, and you was like, yo, that's not even the black gays doing that shit. You said because they have an agenda to try to separate us, right? Like you was like, they're trying, he said, because if I recall, you was like, for the first time, you see black folks, no matter color, creed, like no matter.
It resonated around the world.
And he was like, so why?
And it included everybody.
Because nobody was saying Black Lives Matter except gay lives. Nobody, you know what I'm saying? But this kind of thing started creeping in and it kind of started causing division. And I know you was giving me some insight into that because you were saying like, oh no, we was getting too powerful. We was coming together. We weren't even worried about if we, somebody, if you black, we here, we on the same page. So can you talk to me about some of the things you knew about going on behind the scenes in regards to that piece?
Well, since that time, synergy has been a beautiful thing in the black community. This has probably been the first time, at least in my lifetime, that data shows, from black businesses to how black women is succeeding in education across the board. Black entrepreneurship period is
on the rise.
Right, it's on the rise. But usually to anything good, there's always going to be a hijack. And I guess during that time, pretty much during that time, it was, in my opinion at least, it was some hijacking. It was some hijacking going on. And it's not anything new. And pick a subject, it doesn't happen, where black folks done finally,
start to get liberated.
To get liberated, and then here they want to come playing, acting like they saving somebody or something. And it was all some political mess of what it is. But I think more importantly that it just been in my experience period that we all have more in common than not. And when we find it? When we all broke. Right. When we all find it? Man. Is when we just struggled and all that other kind of stuff. Where what this person, whatever you done heard, none of that matters at all. You got some beans, you got some rice.
Wait.
Then
Yeah,
that's when we were united.
Unfortunately, but certain things are, and
so in regards to the hijack, I want to talk about that because that's something that resonated with me where I was like, as soon as it started happening, I was like, oh shit, they about to do it. They about to divide. As soon as I saw it, I said, because now you in a messed up position, because if you say, hey, yo, when we say Black Lives Matter, we are talking about all Black lives. They're going to say, you're trying to erase it. Like, you know what I'm saying? It started pitting people against each other when it's like, my homegirl asked me, she said, what black leader at that time during Black Lives Matter was saying anti-LGBTQ anything about black folks? None. She was like, none. None of the people who had the platform, even
we know that it was a white male gay agenda thing because they're the only ones who wear, to a certain degree, color matters. To a certain degree, where gay comes before black in identity. Let me say it that way.
Right.
Where gay or comes before black. most Black people, I don't care where you're from, whatever the case may be, not unless, well, you know, some people identify how they identify. I'm trying to be careful of that because I respect and appreciate all of that. But for the majority of the people, in my opinion, you Black before nothing else. You Black. I don't care whether you drag, trans, whoop whoop, whatever. Black. It's only for white people that where being white falls behind them being gay.
Well, because that's where the power lies, right?
And that's how they feel. No, we are marginalized, you know, because we're gay, not because of your skin tone, not because of anything that you have, just because. But these people. So that's how we kind of knew, just kind of systemically, just kind of for the most part with Black people, how we are for everything that was going on at that time. For that to be in the song that was resonating, it didn't have nothing to do with nothing about no damn sexual orientation at all. When it resonated around the world, bro, it didn't have nothing to do, and that's why it was so powerful, though.
Yeah,
because it was that common song that resonated amongst everybody, and how it song for you, how it rang for you in your head,
it rang for you the same way.
That's how we knew.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about that even in you know, kind of in regards to the Chappelle shit, because me and Cameron had a very interesting conversation about this, you know, back when we were in Arizona. I think because of my conversations with you, I think I heard what Dave was saying different than a lot of people did, right? Because I had that preemptive conversation with you about how you even told me, you was like, yo, the amount of racism I experienced in the gay community alone, right? Like the amount of, you was telling me about your experiences with
And working in the field.
and working in the field and all that. Yeah, you was telling me about how
on the money side.
I don't know if you know, Kuni used to do a lot of activism for like HIV.
Yeah, I worked for the Black AIDS Institute, worked in research and where it was all about community mobilization and really focusing on, like, I guess, trying to create real synergy amongst groups and not to have crab of a barrel type of attitude amongst these various Black people, Black owned, or hell, we only have a certain amount of. So yeah, and where how that money
is allocated.
And
so me and you talked about that, and you was telling me about like the amount of racism you experienced in that community, and especially as you started to rise in ranks and started to rise in name, and the amount of racism you experienced alone. So you said you understood what Dave said a little differently than other people in the community because of your experience, right?
I mean, I heard number one, I was never a big Dave Chappelle fan.
Right.
Let me just start there. I was never a big. I respected him for what he did and his power and all that. You know, he just wasn't
your cup of tea.
He just necessarily wasn't my cup of tea. When I did watch it, I had to give it a fair shot, which meant for me, I needed to hear from the first word until the credits started rolling, because I need to hear his
context.
Now, true indeed, though I am not of the trans community, I am not of the Jewish community. I'm not, because he talked about some everybody. I felt that was equal opportunity. I like those kind of people. That's just that's just me. But on that, it made sense where, white, he kind of, to me, was talking about like white privilege. And I didn't see what the problem was under trans, but for the trans community, and this is just my little old opinion about that part, only because, in my opinion, he shared some moments of where he grew. It was similar to how I heard Quincy share his stories about how, and it may have been non-traditional to some, and maybe familiar to others, who knows? But to me, he shared a journey, and he talked about his friend. Now, of course, the community didn't want to hear about, because what the real joke was, it was her own community why she seemingly killed herself. They didn't want to say nothing about that, though. I'm just saying. Now, I'm not of that community. They have the right to feel, and educate me and all that. Correct me, and I don't mind listening, and redoing some bad problems. But Dave, he was.
Well, I thought, like I said, I think at the end of the day, when he said, if you were listening to me, he said, if you were listening to me in all my specials, I'm talking about white people. I'm talking about
You was.
And
folks.
they just gotta fight that.
Yeah, and I think he was
No.
because he was saying because I think using Caitlyn Jenner even was an example of what he was talking about, right? Like he was basically saying like, yo,
All this until
even
you do
in Caitlyn Jenner being a trans woman now, Caitlyn
He was
Jenner
talking about
still
white
holds
trans.
all
The
that.
black trans
Male
was not a
and
part of
white.
that.
And black trans was not a part of
Black
that.
trans or gay community was not a part of that. In my opinion, he was talking about white trans community and their clout and their privilege. He wasn't talking
Well, yeah,
about
because he said they're minorities until they don't have to be.
Right.
Even when he said that, black trans don't get that luxury, right? Like he was like when they ready to call the police on a nigga, they white now. They not marginalized no more, and now they're white. So I think he gave the preempt of that, and I was saying like, so he gave you the legend, he gave you the key, but I don't think people followed the key
people don't
throughout.
read well.
Because I think he was like, I'm not going to expect him now to say throughout every single time I'm talking about white trans, but he said it so you can know like, yo, this is the context in which I'm talking about, so y'all understand. And it's funny because he's such a smart dude. He even made reference to Marsha P. Johnson when he said, "I miss those kind of trans people." Marsha P. Johnson, who was the black trans woman who was the impetus for the Stonewall uprising, right? Who also her impetus for that Stonewall uprising. Also, she was like one of the four bearers of Pride. Period. But
She was
they took credit from her,
right.
and don't give her credit. But so even then, he was saying like, basically, look, I'm not talking about y'all.
And he also said how he enjoyed nothing on that news. I'm sorry, but he's like, I'm like, that nasty bastard. I'm sorry.
But you know what I'm saying? So I think he was giving context clues. I think people didn't want to take it because I'm like, even when he said that, I'm like, that was very specific to call out Marsha P. Johnson while talking about trans folks and talking about the credit that she didn't get for what she did for the movement. Because she basically was the Crispus Attucks of this whole Pride shit.
Basically.
You know what I mean? And you be hearing about fucking Harvey Milk. It's Harvey Milk who did it. But now Marsha P. Johnson. You hear about Harvey Milk more than you hear about Marsha P. Johnson. Not that what Harvey Milk did was important, but Harvey Milk gets a lot of credit for what Marsha, you know what I'm saying? Marsha P. Johnson.
That's just our history though, as far as achievements and what we've done and what
But
we started.
And so, and that's a great analogy to what happened. Milk took the credit for Marsha. The same way with the Black Lives Matter.
Right.
Here comes the no. You trying to get credit for that's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I think he was talking about more of that, and I think if more people listened to the context clues, they would have understood that. But also, like you said, people have the right to feel exactly how they feel. I'm not here to tell nobody, how they should feel about it. I'm just talking about the way I interpreted what he said and how he said it. Because I was like, why would he specifically mention Marsha P. Johnson if he was trying to be harmful to black trans folks?
You're being very calculated.
Because that's very calculated.
That's
You know what I'm saying?
Well, let's be clear. A lot of folks do not comprehend well. A lot of people do not listen well.
the dumbification of America.
No, a lot of people don't. They don't. In my opinion, if you hear what he said, word for word, from the beginning to the end,
There's nothing to talk about.
it was actually great comedy. And there was a lot of great talking points that was in there. Now, there was also a lot of things to be offended by, but I didn't, in my opinion, I didn't see where the trans part came in. Now, some of them other Jew jokes and some blah, blah. Now,
I thought that's what he was going to catch the heat for. I thought he was going to catch the heat for the Jewish jokes. Yeah, I was surprised. Like, that took the back seat. I thought, because them Jewish jokes was raw. You know what I'm saying? But I thought he was going to catch it for that. But
I
even
think the Jews was like them. They can take
they
a
back
joke with
them.
it and they back
well, but even in that though, I think it's funny because after his special came out, we saw what he was talking about play out in real time.
and immediately.
Like immediately what he's talking about played out in real time when
That was
John
Friday.
Gruden.
It came out Friday.
It came out
Monday.
yeah, it came out Friday.
Yeah.
John Gruden email is about the racist shit he was saying about black players and black folks came out that Friday as well. And Friday,
It's like Netflix knew about it.
it was crazy, right? It's like Friday he come out with a statement, yo, I'm not racist. Saturday, they start trotting out all the black players to say, I know John Gruden, he's a great man, he's not racist. Then Sunday,
Tony Dungy.
then Sunday the email came out that he said a gay slur. And that
That
actor was fired immediately.
You saw the headline, and you saw the next headline.
The headline was like, so I was like, as long as he was
Literally
saying,
17 minutes later.
yeah, as long as he was saying all that racist shit, talking about the big lips, talking about Obama, talking about Kaepernick, he kept his job. And the minute he said something gay, like a gay slur, he was gone. I was like, damn, that's crazy, because this is what Chappelle was talking about in real time. You can be damaging as you want to black people,
Say what you want.
and you will survive. You will survive it all. The minute he said, the minute they found that email where he said a gay slur, it's funny because they found one email with a gay slur, but it was like 30 racist emails.
Now,
But he survived through the 30.
It was about the commissioner.
And it was about
It was about the
commission. But he survived through 30
Right.
slurs, even about Obama and Kaepernick and
Half of them agree with it.
and the GM who had lips like Michelin tires. And,
Can we
like
make that assumption though?
yeah, I think a lot of them agree with it. That's why he was able to survive through that, right? Because they, like Chappelle was saying, he's like, oh, it's par for the course. You can treat us like shit with impunity.
Right.
And for me, at the crux of it, I think he was saying, if you can't say that about that community, you should be able to do that to us either.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you shouldn't be able to do that to us either. I want the same treatment. I want the same protections.
Correct.
You know what I mean? If they're marginalized people, us as black folks should get that same protection.
Or
when it
don't
comes to
protect
When the NFL is
right,
made up
or
of
don't protect anyone. Yeah.
I think I just heard that the NFL is made up about 76% black people.
75% black
Okay,
players.
as far as players,
Yep,
right? Thank you for the
76%
correction
black
for the players. I take the fault of the players because if you
I agree with you. I agree with you.
dead ass serious.
I agree with you.
So
different topic though, but isn't that kind of Kanye-ish?
No, me and Quincy talked about.
Get up there for the players, in my opinion, should have been like, hell no, fuck that. We are not going to accept.
I don't want to time in, but that's kind of like the same thing, though.
No, I think what he's saying is because we saw it with the NBA.
Right.
When Donald Sterling was on that bullshit, and
They said we're not playing.
they said we're not playing.
That's what I'm talking
and
about.
the
NBA, can we agree? NBA players are different. The NFL players are a unique specimen. They're sort of bred from a certain point, and when they get to college, they're surrounded by white women. Like they basically just have this machine.
So we gonna give excuses?
No. There's no excuse. It's just there's different mindsets.
I think there's different
That's why
mindsets,
the
but
NBA
I think there's
players-
different
I don't care about none
mindsets.
of
But I think even with the different mindsets, I think the NFL players should be held a little bit accountable for their treatment, only
Right.
because they are the product.
Right.
And if you are the product and you yield that power, because for some reason they're afraid to yield that power.
So we're the field slaves. See, like the house black folks were the ones that were educated and people were okay with moving into.
Well, I don't know, because if you watch a lot of the commentators, because there's this perception that football players aren't educated. Like cats like Lincoln Kennedy, they some of the most intelligent.
Out of all the sports, I mean, between basketball, they have more degrees. They have more degrees in the NBA.
Yeah, so I can't use that excuse.
But even that percentage ratio.
Yeah, so I don't want to use that excuse, but I agree with Kuni, because me and Quincy talked about this. The minute that Kaepernick was shunned from the NFL, if the two teams that were playing the Super Bowl was like, we're not gonna play until y'all get this man a job, I guarantee you Cap would have got a job.
Yeah.
Like, because money's on the line. Because it wasn't even the finals with the Clippers and the Warriors. It was like, was it the first? It was the first round of the playoffs, right, Quincy?
Yeah, I think it's like game one. It just
First round of the playoffs. So this is not the huge money, but they said, yo, we know y'all got us slated to go on ABC in about 30 minutes. If y'all, because the whole thing was like, we're not gonna remove Sterling until the end of the season.
Right.
They're like, if y'all don't remove Sterling right now, we're not playing. And then the Warriors agreed, said if they don't play, we won't play. So they ain't gonna be no forfeit. And Sterling was gone before them motherfuckers.
yeah, they was planning to walk in the middle of the floor and drop their uniforms off.
Yeah.
Right before the game. And it just NBA players understand their leverage. I think that's one of the reasons why like people like LeBron James are hated, because they understand their leverage. NFL players, for some reason, and I get it. There's a contract differences because NBA players have guaranteed contracts and NFL players don't. But like Dan gave a prime example. That Super Bowl, if that league is 75% black. I don't know what two teams was in the Super Bowl that year, but if the black players on each team both said, "Hey, we ain't playing,"
Ain't no game.
Kaepernick would have had a job.
You know what it also is? If you notice in basketball, there is no combine. There's tryouts. Like you work out for a specific team. A team brings you in, you do a workout for them. In football, there's an actual combine. And in this combine, they're breaking. So we talked about maybe about 30 to 45 minutes ago, the breaking in the butt, like breaking bucks, right? So here you are. Here's another system where you're taking these black men, and it's a very similar system to slavery, and you're breaking down these black men to themselves to the point where every single thing about them is being analyzed from the head to the toe, from their toenails, to the fingernails, the height, the weight, if you don't perform a certain way. And so it's kind of that mindset is different than a basketball player who's being groomed as a child compared to a football player who's being groomed as a child. Like if you look at AAU, right? These AAUs, even as children, have a certain type of power in being able to organize and get together and what it is that they have as opposed to these football players who's being told and conditioned all their life. So now here you are. So not only do you have the pay discrepancy as well as non-guaranteed contracts, but you also have this long line of conditioning of I have to be a certain way for this game. I have to be perfect. I can't afford. And so at any given moment, that's why so many of them are afraid to step out of line. Because if I step out of line, if I speak up, I'm going to lose everything I have. Like, and it's sad to say because I love football. You know, I'm a football guy through and through. But it's like if I step out of line, Master going to correct me. And so I can't afford for Master to correct me. And like I said, they don't realize like they actually are the product. And if enough of them actually just realize and revolt, like we can be bigger than what currently is. But it's this long line of conditioning along with the fact
that there is an NBA combine. It's just not as
it's different though.
No, they all meet in Chicago. They do the measurements. They do the whole little deal. It's the same concept.
So what do you think is the difference though, Quincy? Then because I got another comment from Yasmin. She said, "I think about football players having a different frame of mind. They are treated like chattel. It's different, and it comes from the big Southern schools, and it starts in high school, like the big Southern schools."
That could be something to that. I don't know. It's just I think that all you need is one. I mean, I know people got mad at when LeBron and all those guys decided to say, "Hey, no, we're gonna go where we want to go," and that mentality really made them enemies or people begin to villainize them because they took control of their own career. And I just think that I'm wondering how many black agents are in the NBA versus the NFL. Because I have a feeling that probably also has something to do with it as well. That you have a black agent that's going to go and pull, like you have a Rich Paul. You remember how mad at them for LeBron for bringing on Rich Paul, and the other mostly white agents was mad at them, didn't want to sign clutch players and all that stuff. And I think I'm willing to check out the statistics. How many black agents are because I could see white agents talking an NFL player out of, oh no, you might not want to do that. Like don't do this. Versus a black agent going in there with your leverage, like, hey, this is what he want, and if you don't give it, we out. Like truly playing the leverage play. Also, you got more black representation in the front office in the NBA as well.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like, even in the NFL, I think they said maybe I think it's less than 1%. I think it's like 1% or less than one. It was some very minuscule number of like front office, top top head.
It's more
Exactly, especially in the NFL. That's why when the two black teams with the two black coaches was like that like that. I mean, right? Because and I just listened to like statistically, it was impossible. It was like damn near impossible.
For two black coaches to
reach because there would have never been two black coaches.
Right. Right.
But even then, you hear like Steve Kerr was calling out Trump racism. Greg Popovich calling out Trump. Like even like the NBA coaches is like on a different level than NFL coaches.
It's about representation, though. Like I think that's like the representation of that, right?
Yeah, but I also think it's to the point where you asked me, said is like this because a lot of the tradition in football is bred in that southern shit.
Yeah,
like how Texas is a huge football state.
Texas, Alabama, Louisiana.
Like all those places are basically the biggest factories for NFL football players and coaches and front office people, right? So there is this southern kind of,
it's just management and employees.
Yeah, southern attachment.
It's bred into the. It's like
it's kind of bred into the league.
Yeah.
Whereas the NBA has always, even when they was on some bullshit, the NBA was always just a little bit more progressive than the NFL, right?
With Magic and Bird.
But I think the NFL, what they kind of like threaten the players in an indirect way with is that I don't know. We had to be about 10 or 11. That there was a season during a strike season. I forgot which team won the Super Bowl that year, but the original players didn't play. Like in the NFL, use replacement players. Now with so much money, and the NFL tend to they got that mindset. Well, you guys don't play. We'll find some other guys that's gonna play. I think the money is different now, to the point. Okay, if you want to, you can trot somebody out there that's no name. What happened in 80. I think that was 87.
That wouldn't work out just because of the exposure to players.
Yeah.
People know if Dak Prescott ain't playing.
Yeah,
people
exactly.
Know, you know what I'm saying? Because of not only the exposure, but because of exposure in fantasy football, you'll know if your stars ain't playing, and people ain't gonna be okay with that shit.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that'd be fact checking you right
there.
Yeah.
It'll be a different thing. Before we get out of here, because we're gonna wrap up in a bit.
87. That was 1987.
Yeah.
The NFL used replacement players.
Now. You couldn't get away with now because social media, again, like I said, social media.
$5,000 for a ticket.
And $5,000 for a ticket, and Keanu Reeves is the quarterback.
Right, no.
You know what I'm saying?
Did you say Keanu Reeves?
Yeah, remember he was in the movie The Replacement? Football movie The Replacement?
Right.
No, that was Any Given Sunday.
No, lost.
The Replacement was Keanu Reeves and Gene Hackman. Anyway, so I wanted to talk about this because I think this is a good kind of leeway into the final thing from football. The idea of toxic masculinity versus divine masculinity and divine femininity. I know Cam wanted to kind of touch on that. So Cam, give me your thoughts, and we'll springboard up what you say, brother.
I mean, I was kind of enjoying this football conversation. It had me thinking about like why in basketball things are happening and in football it's not. But sorry. So
the biggest thing, wait, before you start, the biggest thing, a lot of the basketball players and the basketball team owners are a lot more liberal than the NFL. The NFL, a lot of the NFL owners were like Trump supporters, and then a lot of the NBA owners were like Democrats. You know what I'm saying?
Think about it like this: Dr. Buss molded Magic into being an owner one day, and then say, "Okay, I'm gonna show you how much I appreciate you. I'm gonna make you part owner of my team." Jerry Jones ain't doing that shit.
And there it is.
Well, one person, Romo, he's getting 2%.
Because
Romo ain't black, and he did this with Magic in the '80s.
He was his son. As far as everybody knew, that was his son.
The NFL,
Even taught them how to speak well.
Right.
Yeah.
No, for real.
Magic.
Or-
Magic Man was smart. Magic Man
Well-
was smart.
Not in the day.
the NFL treats ownership like they treat wealth. Like you have to be grandfathered in and their own. So if you notice in the NFL, when was the last time you seen a new owner?
Khan, which was recent.
Yeah, but he's so rich.
Like other than that, you don't really see new owners. You see it passed down to the child. You see it passed down to the wife. You see it passed down, and like in baseball, which is surprising because even baseball progressed a little faster than football. But like even baseball started selling percentages of the team away. Like, hey, we're gonna give a percentage of this to this minority group. We're gonna give a percentage to that. NFL owners are not doing that. They're simply passing it down to keep it within their family. Like something has to happen drastically for ownership to kind of get passed along to a different route. And that's why you continuously see a similar system or a similar ownership with the same ideas. And it really is going to take one of these owners' children who is kind of a little bit more liberal, who all of a sudden has a little bit more black friends, or there's a little bit more mixture in the family, that's going to kind of start changing the narrative. But it's so much harder in the NFL than it is because they're not willing to be progressive. It's like, I'm going to pass this down to my son, and I'll influence my son and have these set of beliefs and so forth. So it's going to be very difficult to see that change in the NFL.
Sam, but you got to also address why that is. They can do that in the NFL because people still support them.
Sure.
If people had just held out during the NFL, we would have probably had this resolved. But the people, so we want to blame the players, but I'm like, the easiest thing to do is just not to watch. And we couldn't get over that. So I'm not going to go into that topic, but when we have another opportunity, people give up.
That was a big problem. That was a big problem right there.
Wait, so if I'm understanding correctly, in basketball, there's more black male unity because there's more black ownership, right? And in the NFL,
not just ownership and management.
Mm-hmm. The representation is there.
And you had owners going to bat. Like a lot of owners was going to bat for the players. Like when the players is like, we're not gonna play in the playoffs, the owners like, tell us what we need to do. And they're like, we want you to open some voting. Like they use their leverage. Like, we want you to open some voting polling places using your stadium. We want you to use your power and your money to do outreach for our community. And the owners was like, okay, cool. So even if it wasn't for altruistic things, they knew it was going for their bottom line. They did
like the crazy thing about D Wade. D Wade met the owner on the Jazz on another project, and he liked D Wade so much. He's like, hey, you know what? How about you become part owner of our organization? You just don't hear about these type of stories in the NFL.
Okay.
I think it don't Usher owns part of the Hawks.
Cleveland, I think.
Or Cleveland.
Cavaliers.
Yeah.
Okay, the Cavs. I mean, Michael Jordan. I mean, we know his story. Like, you have guys where owners are actually molding guys to be molding players, I should say, to be owners. You don't see it in the NFL. And like, because Dane said, because a lot of those are Trump homies.
Right. Well, could we also add that the NBA is just cool? Like, the owners want to hang around the NBA players.
Yeah.
Whereas in NFL, it's a team. They have a helmet on. You don't know who he is. I'm the owner. That's my team. Don't worry about their face.
Hey, Ron, to that point, Magic said when he came in, like, you didn't talk to the owner. So he said what kind of gave him a bad reputation early on in his career is because Dr. Buzz, he built a relationship with Dr. Buzz because he said he always knew he wanted to be in business. He just didn't know how he wanted to go about being a businessman. And he said Dr. Buzz was like, okay, cool. These are the things you need to do. So Dr. Buzz became like a mentor. But he said with the players in the 80s, that was frowned upon. Like, oh, you up there talking to the owner. We can't really fuck with you like that.
That makes sense.
Now, dudes goes, they skip right. Also, dudes would skip right over. I mean, when Kobe got mad at Jim Buss, he went straight to Dr. Buss and Jenny.
Yeah.
Buss.
Yeah, so I think that is a good examples of why maybe there are differences and maybe why those players. Rebecca had a good comment too in regards to just us boycotting and watching. She said there's too many white folks that support the NFL. There was no way without the players participating it would work.
Mm-hmm.
So we would have to stop watching, and the players would have had to be like,
I don't agree because sponsors have a certain target. So when they're providing endorsements to it, I get 10 million viewers. So if I'm not getting that 10 million viewers, that's the point. We have an unhealthy relationship with sports, Black people. We fight over, it's our team. We don't even fight over Black people like we fight over our goddamn football team. Like, think about that. We have an unhealthy relationship with sports. And if we can't give up watching entertainment, we will never succeed. Period. Like I gotta let it go. We have an unhealthy relationship.
Hey, Rob taking me back to some Take 5 conversations that I heard.
And it's funny too because I remember, before the Kaepernick shit, I was diehard Raiders fan. I was like, preseason games, I'm going. Like, me and the wife would literally build our whole Sunday around football. Where we gonna get up? Where we gonna go watch football? Where we gonna go eat brunch at 10 o'clock after that before the 3 o'clock game started? Like, we built so much of our life around Sunday football, right? And Thursday night and Monday night football.
Like, sure.
And then when the Kaepernick shit, that shit hurt me so bad. I was like, I can't support this shit. If they gonna blatantly do this in our face and blatantly say, if you stand up for your people, nigga, you gonna be punished.
Right.
Because that's what it was. He was being made an example out of, right? Like,
he was being hung in front
of the entire world. Like, nigga, this nigga get out of line, he never gonna play this game again that he loves. And it's funny because Michelle Tafoya was on The View today. She was like, I guarantee you, if they thought he could take them to a Super Bowl, he would have been on the team. Like, you're damn lie. Because he had just went to the Super Bowl when they started doing that shit. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day because that's like a white woman speaking on Black shit. Like she got authority. Anyway, but
Dame, if I could add to that, I mean, I don't know that we need to go into the toxic masculinity, but I think what you said is powerful. You saw another Black male being hurt, right? And it changed your whole perspective of like in the NFL. Like, that to me is literally the definition of Black male unity. Like, you saw in someone their pain, and you changed your thinking.
I was like, if they'll do that to him, and he's literally trying to stand up for me and us, we gotta have his back. That's how I felt. That's how
exactly.
I felt. Like, yo, we gotta get behind dude because he's taking the brunt because he wants them to stop abusing us. He's telling the world, I want the police to stop abusing Black folks.
Right.
And we can't just not watch that come out, And then even after that, I didn't watch when they were like boycott the NFL. I didn't watch for like 2 years. And even on the third year where it kind of like faded and everybody was watching again, I couldn't bring myself to watch it and get into it, and it didn't feel right.
So you understood that unhealthy. So
I got it.
That's empathy, man.
My passion. Like, I watch it, but it like if the Raiders lose, I'm like, all right.
Right.
Hey, the Lakers lose, don't call me. I'll cut your ass off. But it's not the same. It's kind of like somebody done fucked around on you, and they come back. The relationship just ain't the same. And
I understand.
That's pretty much how I feel about that. I remember I could tell you each Raider, their position, where they from. I could probably name 5-6 players. I kind of
that right now.
Yeah. But don't ask me no jersey numbers though, because I won't. But the thing that to me that was so alarming with Kaepernick is they switched the narrative on him. He was clearly about where he spoke up. I'm against police brutality. Somehow they made him against America. So speaking out against racism,
because police brutality is that American.
Speaking out became against America. Then we forget he kneeled because a veteran told him that's more respectful. Because you remember he was sitting down.
Yeah.
He was sitting at first. So a vet told him, a military vet said, hey, you know what? It'd just be more respectful than you kneel. They frowned upon that. So it was like you clearly saw the character assassination right in our face. And it's like you just want Black folks to be like, okay, we should be angry at this. And you have no, I got to see my Niners.
My team. I'm about to go travel.
My team, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, nigga, At
And then
least
what
for this
was
dude.
crazy to me was the rationalization of it. Like
Players are playing.
the players are playing, and if I don't watch, that ain't gonna
pay
change nothing.
$20 million a game.
But I'm like, what the players do ain't got to do with my personal convictions. Because it's my personal conviction that made me say, yo, they hanging this bro out to dry. Like, I can't rock with this shit.
Just imagine if we would have just got on the bus when Rosa Parks was like, you know what, we're not doing this. Just imagine one nigga was just like, you know what, man, fuck that, I'm tired. My feet hurt.
I know what Harriet Tubman would have done to
Yeah,
you.
shot that motherfucker.
I mean, Jerry Jones literally was like, no, all my players' toes are gonna be on the line. Like, I mean, and dude, there's no way I would have ever been able to play for Jerry Jones again after saying some shit like that. And it's like what they was doing, and then Trump jumped on the shit, and it's like what they did to that dude. But people, like Ron said, all we was asking was for a season.
Yeah,
together.
Just a season of unity to show them like we'll bounce on your ass.
And your team was whack. So I mean, you could have missed that shit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Me quitting was perfect because
yeah, he sucked ass that year. So,
you had a whack team. Y'all still watching that shit?
yeah, but so that's what I mean. Like, I think, to go into the next subject, Cam, I think for me, the subject of toxic masculinity has been so polarizing because I think some shit has been used, to Kuni's point about a white agenda against black folks, to utilize black masculinity in itself as toxic masculinity, not actual toxic behavior.
Right.
I mean, just black masculinity in itself was starting to be the picture of toxic masculinity, not actual toxic behaviors, because there's a difference.
Correct.
There are some toxic, some male toxic behavior, but there was things that were happening in the black male community, and I wish I wanted to write down some of the instances, because I remember we had talked about these things when it was happening in real time, but there were some things where they were like, I think there was a commercial with black fathers and their black sons. And I remember all the think pieces coming about how that was toxic masculinity to show black fathers and their black sons in a Super Bowl ad or some shit like that. And it wasn't like the black father was like, hey, yo, go grab her by the pussy. It wasn't none of that. It was literally just like them sharing heartfelt moments and shit. They was like, why couldn't it be two gay fathers, or why couldn't it be da-da? And I was like, damn, that's wild. Like, because first of all, it was just one father and one son, so we don't know what the fuck the other person was, you know what I mean? But it was just literally the picture of male positivity was getting think pieces written on it as toxic masculinity. So I wanted to talk about that in regards to like separating those two things, separating actual toxic behavior and separating people using that term as a catch-all, like they doing now with critical race theory. They start just using that for like anything masculine. If you just say, I want my son to play football, that's toxic masculinity, right?
He can be a gymnast.
Yeah. So that's kind of
wow. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Cam. That's how I kind of wanted to enter into it.
Yeah, no, I'm taking all that in. I mean, that commercial, the way you're explaining it to me doesn't sound toxic at all. It sounds like two men being celebrated that are black. I mean, from what I'm understanding with toxic masculinity, and I'm just learning it myself and getting just familiar with it. I mean, it's when masculinity is used as a weapon, right?
Yes,
It's when it's used to, the prime example is like war. War is like the result of men who are like dominate, like control, like all that shit. And like in everyday life, to me, it's like sexual assault. It's men who are just feeling like they can overpower women. And I feel like, I think part of what I'm getting to is like growing up, like young black boys like myself were taught like you have to be this way. You have to hold everything in. You can't show emotion. You can't be vulnerable. You got to play sports, to the point where like you're made to feel like you have to be a certain way, and you can't embrace emotion, which is like crazy. Like that doesn't work.
So let's unpack that though, Cam. So let's unpack that. So
Yeah.
in regards to that, in regards to like teaching, and I had this conversation with my dad. He said, well, we had to try to teach young black men a certain behavior at the time, said because the world is going to be cruel to y'all.
Right. I understand that.
He said, so because the world was going to be cruel to y'all, we felt like we had to toughen you up just to prepare you for what you was going to be dealing with in the real world. He's like, I didn't have the luxury of letting you be able to be out in public having feelings and shit. He said, because that shit is going to be used against you. That shit is going to be used to put you on ADHD medicine. That shit is going to be used to say you're unstable. He was like, you don't get the luxury of a young white kid who gets to go to therapy in school. Our kids going to get put on Ritalin and get sat in the office. You know, me and you worked in the school system. They're going to put the young black kid who's excitable. They're just going to put him on Ritalin and sit him in the office and say he's a behavior problem. He was like, yeah, you're going to be a zombie. And I remember that there was a kid who, he was just like an overactive kid. We had a couple of them, and they put him on that shit. And I remember his name was Russell. And I remember he coming back to class and just the droopy eyes and no life. And I was, and it fucked me up because I was only like 19 at the time. I was like a teacher's age. And it fucked me up because I'm like, look what they doing to our little black boys. Because he wasn't doing nothing outrageous.
Right.
He was doing shit like
being a child.
Being a child. Like he's on the yard like snatching jackets from people and shit. Like he wasn't doing nothing, like he wasn't kicking people in the nuts. He wasn't slapping teachers and shit. He wasn't doing nothing that
out of the ordinary
for a child. But because they were like, oh, he's too hyperactive, he's doing too much, they took him to the office, and when they brought him back to the class, and this happened with, like you said, there was a few kids that we saw this happen with. And our black boys don't get the same grace to express our feelings and behave and lash out. Because if little Billy lashes out, they can say, what's wrong with little Billy? Let's put him in therapy and find out. If a little black boy lash out, we put him in a special ed class, we get him an IEP, and he's going to be stuck with this label until the end of high school. So we need more black teachers. And also we need more black teachers. And that's a whole nother huge issue.
But I think the art is kind of important. You know, that was one place
to express.
You know, that was always one constructive place where I could, wherever I was feeling for karaoke song or being a tree in the play or whatever, I could always direct that energy there. I just wonder, you know, I mean, I know they don't have Miss Garden Hires no more. Miss Garden Hire was, she always did our plays in our elementary school. But the point of it is, like, I just wonder, like, do kids even, we grew up in the public schools, you know, public school systems. You know, are any of those programs or like?
No, I just found out recently Washington's marching band is not even a class anymore. My high school marching band is just a fucking after school club.
So you have to basically join it. You have to take it.
You have to join, and it's only after school. It's not like you get graded because you know we got graded for band. Right. So you have to go. You have to make sure you had your shit. You was prepared. You was ready to play, so you can get your grade. And then going to competition was part of your grade. Going to football games was part of your grade. Now it's literally. It's a club after school. So if you want to show up and play at the football game, you can. If you don't have to. So you know what I mean? So it's like a lot of those things that were lifesavers for us, lifesavers for a lot of people, they're gone. They're gone. But, you know, back to, you know, Cameron's point, because I do think that black kids should be, like, let me say this. I think black kids should be able to express themselves. I think black kids should be able to have feelings and express their feelings. I just think it's messed up that the school system, the government system, the law enforcement system is kind of set up in a way for us not to be able to. Therefore, our parents have to do what seems to be fucked up to the rest of the world and tell us, yo, this is how we have to behave just to survive.
Survival tactics.
Yeah, so it's like a lot of survival tactics to it where they like, well, because this is what we had to do to survive because we coming up in the 60s during the Watts riot time where police will come out and they just beat your ass and drop you off in the middle of a white neighborhood and call other police and say you're trespassing in a white neighborhood. My dad went through that.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? And then my cousin went through a different version of that in the 90s where they picked him up and was like, you a Crip, and then dropped him off in a blood neighborhood and got on the loudspeaker and said, hey, y'all, we just dropped off a Crip. You know what I mean? So when you deal with California. Yeah, all in California. So when you deal with and see those things, you're preparing your child differently because you have to deal with shit that the average child is not going to have to deal with, shit that the average child is not going to see. And again, so that's also a fucking form of trauma and shit that's going to cause some toxic energy within us, because dealing with society at large for a lot of us is just fucking toxic. You know what I mean? Like literally sometimes just existing for, I ain't gonna say a black man, just existing for a black person is toxic. Man, I was watching the New Wonder Years yesterday. I love that show. If y'all get a chance, watch the New Wonder Years show. It is the black experience.
I'm waiting for the full series so I can
see that.
I need to binge.
It's the black experience as we have never seen it on major TV, on like ABC. Like it's the black experience, and there's so many things that resonate. And this is the 60s, but there's so many things that they go through that I'm like, that's my mama. That was my dad. That was, you know, but there was an episode where he went to work with his mom. Be cool. And he went to work with his mom, and he's watching his mom juggle white people taking her ideas and taking credit for her shit, even though she was the only person in the office with a master's. She was still kind of a secretary. Right. And then she had to trick them into thinking her idea was their idea. Right, and even though she was the smartest one and she was fixing all the budgets, then they still come to her like, once you make us some of them muffins, you make everybody, you make them so down home. Right. And she got to oblige because you see your face cam, that's how it was looking at the TV when it was happening. But but I'm like, the microaggressions, and then, you know, it wasn't micro in the 60s. That shit was macro, it was straight aggression in the 60s. But I'm like watching this and knowing that my mom dealt with that, and it's crazy even watching. I know my wife deals with that at her job today in 2021. So that I'm just saying that to say, like, literally just existing as black folks, we have to navigate so much toxic shit. It's hard for us, some of us, to not have some toxic behaviors. Correct. Like I remember somebody saying, like, the craziest thing, I think it was a great conversation. If you ever get a chance, watch, there was a conversation between Stephen Baldwin and Nikki Giovanni.
I did see that.
So if you ever get a chance, there's just a conversation between Baldwin and Giovanni about black men and black women and our relations with each other and our interactions and how we deal with each other. It was so fucking dope, and it still resonates today. And she's so, to me, she was like the only person that can spar with Stephen Baldwin. I mean, James Baldwin in that manner, right? Watch it, but he basically said, yo, I got to deal with all that shit on the outside of the world. And when I come home, I don't want to deal with that shit in my house. And Giovanni was like, well, first of all, I got to deal with shit too. Correct. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got to deal with shit too. But you can't bring your aggression for them to me. Exactly. Because that's what was happening. I think that's to your point, Cameron, about the toxic masculinity, right? Like, he's out in the world dealing with all these bullshit and being seen as less than by the white men that he works for, being seen as less than by everybody else in the world. So you come home and you want to lord over somebody. Correct. And somebody you're going to lord over is that woman in your family who's in your house. So that's why you had a lot of those relationships in the early 70s and the early 80s where a lot of people like, I don't even know my dad. He don't really talk to me. He don't really even have conversations with me. Because one, I think they didn't know how to have a lot of those conversations. Because I was blessed. I thank God that I had a dad who was able to have conversations like that with me and able to really have a true relationship. But I know a lot of dudes who dads come in the house, sit down, get their beer, everybody in the house, shut the fuck up. I want to watch my show. I'm tired. I want to watch my show and I want to go to work. I want to go to sleep because I got to go to work and tomorrow and do this shit all over again.
Now, let's give black dads some credit. I mean, you know, it's difficult to not be that toxic in a society where
that's what I said.
You're broke.
Right.
You can't provide food.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying, and I'm not even knocking like that. Yeah. I'm just talking about the fact of the matter.
Yeah, I'm just adding that.
Yeah, like how it was. Yeah, to me, this is I'm not casting any aspersions on the black dads of that era. I'm just kind of showing highlighting, just highlighting and laying out where a lot of these behaviors were bred. A lot of these behaviors come from, and then we pass them down. And like Quincy was even saying, he's like, yo, now I'm raising my son. Quincy gets to raise his son different. Correct. You know what I'm saying? But even when Quincy gets to raising his son different, he still has to warn his son about interacting with the police. Correct. He still has to warn his son about if you ever get caught by yourself with a white girl and you're about to go be an athlete in college, he still has to warn his son about those things. Right. So even in that, there's like toxicity in that
Correct.
shit because there's toxicity in just trying to teach your kids how to survive.
Hey, Dan.
You say, and give me 1 second, so I just want to say this.
Go ahead.
Murphy's famous quote is always, this is something that just always resonates with me, is that it's of no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. Like, just think about that. We are well adjusted to a profoundly sick society, and we think it's normal.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, you're fucking crazy. Like,
Yeah.
that's how sick we are. And so when I always talk about like how sick we are,
Yeah.
it's just talking about like the mental trauma. It's going to take us 800 years to heal from this. We will not see this in our lifetime because we are so damaged.
Go ahead, Sam.
There's also, like we've mentioned it more than a few times, the word understanding throughout this particular show. And there's also a certain level of toxicity in trying to understand, because the problem is, right, you have certain men that are like, you know what, I can't accept what is until I have an understanding. But kind of like the end of the Dave Chappelle episode is like, they don't need us to always try to understand. And while you're spending time trying to understand something that you probably will never comprehend, you're wasting time just accepting. And sometimes it's important to just accept what is. Like, my brother has a different sexuality than me. I don't need to try to understand why he wants to be with a man or what that feels like or trying to comprehend that. I need to just accept that he is who he is. And I'm wasting time trying to understand instead of actually really building a relationship with what is. And so, like, I see men like straight, cis men trying to like really spend time understanding. And that's good, right? Because you figure like, oh, that's a step forward. But there's no progress because all they do is spend their time just trying to understand. And yet still here we are. There's no
I think that goes, Sam, I think that kind of goes back to what me and Cam were talking about a little earlier too, in regards to like who you love is not even like the biggest part of us. Right. Like Ron was saying, like when me and Ron have a conversation, how often do you talk about just sexuality with your homeboys in general? You know what I'm saying? Like that's not even like the main topic of conversation when we just shooting the shit. Right. When me and Kuni talking, that ain't our main topic. It never has been.
But it becomes a topic now when we're speaking to someone else. Or may move.
Well, yeah, if there's a need for that conversation, right, but like on the whole of the people you kick it with of your circle, right, that's not the shit we be on. We literally be talking about the same shit you talk about with all your other homeboys. I talk about with Kuni. We talk about sports, regular ass shit. But I think kind of like what Cam was talking about too, the media makes it like this thing that they want people to laser in on. Like the media makes it, and I think that's like the gift and the curse of TV, right? Because it's like we always talk about how representation matters, and then at the same time, like representation matters, and you hear niggas like, I don't want to see that shit. I don't want to see that gay shit. You know what I'm saying? But I'm like, well, yeah,
because that's why I don't like watching a lot of the Tyler Perry shit. I'm tired. I mean, just what? No, I mean for real, just because I don't know. I think sometimes, and what I'm about to say may sound a little backwards, but sometimes representation. I don't need to know that Robin is gay.
Got you. Right.
For what, like,
for the narrative of the story.
Yeah, like I don't need to see some sex scene between some 7'2" dudes on sisters or whatever. I'm just for me to see for me a story, or because that's not necessarily true representation for me.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Well, you know what? I think,
and then when they give it to us, it's the most outlandish, P-Valley-ish type of thing. Like.
Well, for me, like,
I'd rather see P-Valley.
I watch it too. So yeah.
I'd rather see P-Valley with Uncle Clifford, right, because at least that's some realer, closer to some whole straight up N-word shit that's going on.
That's what most people watch.
So, I mean, no, like, I mean,
we all know Uncle Clifford.
Hey. I mean,
yeah, that character, I would say that character is the number one draw.
Yeah,
but whether men want to say it or not, that character is the number one draw.
I see more representation in Uncle Clifford and the whole around dealing with friendship, dealing with business, dealing with discrimination, dealing with
because he's a fully rounded character.
Correct.
Correct. You know what I'm saying?
I don't care.
Because he has love scenes.
I
He has love
don't
scenes.
care nothing about the nails. I don't care nothing about the outfits. Like when you kind of see this fool in real time
Operating.
operating, he is one of the most hoodest dudes around.
But also, I feel like he's a fully formed character, right?
Correct.
And when you talk about representation, I do think that's important too, right?
For me, at least.
Yeah, like I don't think it's like we gonna have a gay person and it's just to have a gay person. Because I don't even.
But that's how. But that's how most of them work.
You know, like
in
we
my
got this
opinion.
show, we gotta have a gay character. No, I want you to have a gay character that is a fully formed character and a fully formed person, like Omar, Cyrus from Scandal. You know what I mean? Like so there's people who you like the gay part of the character is literally just a piece, it's not the whole character. And so many times I think that's what happens when they try to do representation with a gay character, just like when they used to start trying to do representation of black folks, it was the stereotypical, and then you like, niggas don't talk like that. Like there was no black person in the room when they wrote this shit.
Hollywood show.
And I think that also negatively helps to form toxic masculinity
Because of the wrong representation.
because of the representation. You know, fools look like, I don't want no switch. Wait a minute, because it's not a fully formed character. As a quick little another example, I would take the little show Pose, for example, where it was fully formed characters, fully formed, like excellent writing. How it was shot, and I'm not jocking it because of how I'm dealing with the subject matter. It was, for me, it was smart. I loved how it was shot. Great and awesome writing. But it was fully formed characters to which everyone who I've shared, including my mother, who just is 72, 73, 74 years old, down to watch it. And when they want people like, oh my God, like it's a fully formed where you're not tripping off of just this person. You don't necessarily see a gay person or you see somebody who's having a human experience.
And you see a full life.
And you see it, you get it, you know. But some people are better storytellers than others in representation. So
Well, yeah, but I think you know, like Rebecca said, she said, like we talking about the black writers, a lot of those places who write for gay characters aren't gay people. So that representation isn't,
or it's white gay men,
or it's a white gay man
writing for.
Because I remember, like my wife was watching Sex and the City, and there's like literally one episode with a black dude,
right?
And there was one episode where one of the chicks
Blair Underworld.
No.
Okay,
so
Blair.
But it wasn't that. It was before it. It was before Blair became a main character. It was early on, and I remember his sister didn't like Samantha, and they was about to fight at the club, and they was about to fight, and I never forget his line. He broke them up and said, "Hey, man, keep it real." Yeah. What?
You gotta keep it real.
I'm like, who? Nobody black talks like that. Nobody black is gonna say it in the middle of a fight.
Right. When you watch Wonder Years, you heard "Be Cool."
When I watched Wonder Years, I heard "Be Cool." I'm like, that. I know that dude. I know that dude, and that goes for like when you watch Pose. I see some of my uncles in there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm like, that's a person.
Right.
Like you said, it's a fully formed person, and I feel the same way about certain black characters. Certain black characters, you know, it's just a very surface, stereotypical shit. Like we need a black person in here. We're gonna throw a black person in the cast, Black Power Ranger. We ain't gonna age this nigga shit up or nothing. You know what I'm saying? Right. But then you get to something like when you watching this Wonder Years, and I'm like, I know there was black people in the room when this was written. I know there's black people when they talk about blue light parties in the backyard and sending the oldest kid to get drinks because that's some black shit. You know what I'm saying? Sending the oldest kid to get drinks for the parents, but he couldn't be in a party, but they're gonna call him downstairs and go make everybody drinks. You know what I'm saying? But he knew better than to drink, but he gonna sip the, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm like, that's a very specific black experience. Like Denzel said something great when they asked him about, do you think a black director has to direct a black movie? And he said, listen, he says it's not about race, it's about culture. He said, could Scorsese had directed Schindler's List? Probably. He could have directed it, probably been good. Who who directed Schindler's List? Spielberg have directed The Godfather? He said, probably. He said, but Scorsese directed The Godfather, and he's Italian. He knows there's Italian things that only Italian people gonna connect to and understand.
To try to maintain the authenticity.
And he said, for black folks, he like, only black folks know what it's like when that hot comb hit the hair and that smell on a Sunday morning. That's something specific to our culture. So some things are about the culture, and I even feel that way even when we're talking about representation and gay writing and television and stuff. It's like there are some things that are authentic to the culture, which is why I think Pose did so well, because it was authentic to the culture more than a lot of these things. Because you, like you said, if you don't see yourself, and like Cameron was saying earlier, if you don't see yourself, you're not going to connect to the character just because they're gay. If you don't see yourself in that at all, you're not going to connect to that. But if you see something real, something that resonates, you're gonna connect to that. And I think that's and the funny thing is, because of that, a black man like you, Ron, can connect to Uncle Clifford on P Valley.
Right.
Because he is understanding his fully formed human experience. Right?
Because I'm sort of fascinated with the gangster like movie, and it's clear Uncle Clifford's the biggest gangster.
Right. Like if you into The Godfather, if you're into The Godfather, you're gonna like Uncle Clifford.
Right.
If you're into, you know what I'm saying? Like if you're in, so again, fully formed character.
Right.
Fully formed character that resonates with. So he resonates probably with him because of some of the LGBTQ stuff, but he resonates with you because of the hood shit. Right. That's that common ground. Right. That's that common ground where you can kind of start to break down those walls of the toxic shit between us.
I forgot that I grew up.
Right. He grew up on 92nd and Hood. Yeah, the shit Yeah, we all grew up in South LA. Yeah, so that's what we have in common, right? And that goes to what Cameron was saying about, I think the more of these conversations we just have with each other, because now, think about it. Throughout this conversation, it just felt like we were shooting the shit.
Barbershop.
Just didn't feel like a hard conversation. It didn't feel like, oh, I'm gonna step on the landmine. But also, and this goes with what me and Cam talked about, there's trust in the room. Right? There's trust in the room between us. So I know if I do say something wrong, I feel like Kuni or Cameron is just gonna correct me. And then we can move on and vice versa. And yeah, you know what I'm saying? So now that they're safe, we have a safe place. As they say, we have a safe place to kind of sit down and have these conversations. People are like, Quincy is gonna be okay expressing his journey, his evolution and his change. Right? Sam is gonna be okay expressing because we feel like we're safe with each other in a room. And I think we need more of that. We need more of us being safe with each other in a room to bridge this unity so we can really start to just feel each other on some like, yo, you know what? You my nigga, I don't give a fuck. And if somebody say some wild shit in front of me, I'm going to step up. Because like you see, I don't know if I think Quincy's in the jungle, Sam's in the jungle, but there's a sports group all man, and it's like some of the most homophobic rhetoric I've ever seen. That's one thing I will give a shout out to Take 5 because I don't see that in there. But
that's the admins. Let's get the admins. Sort of
yeah, but in the jungle, I remember. I think this is when what's the lead guy from Pose? Billy
Porter.
Billy Porter had wore the tuxedo dress to one of your worship, and they was posting it in the group and going in like, one, why the fuck would you post this in a sports group? And two, why are y'all worried about it? But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
No, that is here and there.
So then I was the only one. I come on a post like, hey, yo, like, even if y'all don't know it, I'm sure there's gay people in this group. Like, y'all should think that all come out. They gonna say it. They gonna tell you. They gonna tell you. Not me. But it's some gay people in this group. Right. There's 3,000 people in this group. The odds are there's some gay dudes and some gay women in this group. I like y'all might want to chill on the homophobe. Like, oh nigga, you must be gay. Nigga, you come in here caping for the gays, and you must be a F. You know, I'm like
that shows your strength.
But I'm like, nah, I'm not. I said I just don't think this shit is cool. Right. You know what I'm saying? I was like, and they probably not gonna get on the post to say because they don't want y'all doing to them what they doing what y'all doing to me right now. But I don't give a fuck.
And you're confident in yourself. It might bother.
But I feel like on the other side, as straight men, we got to do more checking. Yeah. We got to start checking for our LGBT brothers and sisters. We got to start checking it with the power that we do have, with the little power we do have to have those conversations. If niggas in the barbershop saying wild shit, we got to check this shit like, hey, I would appreciate if you didn't use that kind of language in front of me. Because I don't talk like that about gay people. You know what I'm saying? Or you know what I'm saying? Because if we don't do that, they will think it's okay. even if we stay silent, and I learned this I learned this from Kuni being my best friend growing up. Just being silent isn't enough. Just
Correct.
not being,
Correct. You gotta say something.
just me not being homophobic is not enough. I have to actively try to stop others because that's the way we feel about
White people.
white people and racism. It's
Racism,
not enough
yeah.
for you just to not be racist. You have to be anti-racist.
If you're a friend and you have a friend, you're a friend when they're not around.
Yes.
You're protecting them constantly.
Yeah.
Whether they're in the room or they're not. And we have to be that way with all black people.
With all black people,
Like we seem to have the biggest issues with just ourselves. Like, I'm never gonna talk to that person. Somebody else, white person, you know what? They had a bad day. But with us, we have to, I just want us to be the reverse. Let's give black people that benefit.
Let's give each other that grace.
Like, we're all ignorant,
Yeah.
we all haven't learned everything, so we're all coming from the same place. Let's just give each other the benefit of the doubt. And then if it turns out the other way, that one person is that way.
Well, yeah, and
it's
also
not
I
the
think,
whole group.
and I think I want to I want everybody, like I want every black dude to be able to be comfortable in the barbershop. I don't give a fuck what his orientation is. Like every black dude should be able to come in and shoot the shit because that's a sacred pathway
We're
for
missing
black
out on
men.
some talent.
You missing out on some talent. You missing out on some good conversation. Well, you missing out on some good
You
conversation
missing out on
by doing that and being that way. And you missing out on learning some shit. Like you said, you missing out on some fun shit. Like me and Cam have a fucking ball, dog. Me and Kuni have a fucking ball. And we have some great conversation. And it ain't all about deep shit. Like me and Cam have some deep, great conversation just about fucking music. I remember like one day we're driving, we had like a 2-hour drive, and the whole time we talking about our top 5 hip hop albums the last 10. You know what I'm saying? So, but you miss out on those things when you let this one thing of who he loves stop you from being cool with him.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I want us to bridge that and stop that shit. So we got be more like our kids.
Right.
And then have more of that where we just like, yo, like Sam was saying, it ain't about understanding, it's just about acceptance. Like, yo, that's who it is. It shouldn't matter. Like to me, it shouldn't even be a thing at this point in 2021. I know it is for a lot of people, but it shouldn't even be a thing. Like hearing somebody is gay shouldn't even be a big deal at this point.
Especially if you're over 40 years old. Come on, everybody that we are all at a certain age. If you're still concerned with somebody else is doing in their home, you have wasted 40 years of your life. I mean, just period. You know, we need to be concerned. We got a whole lot of issues in voting. Like
before we get to that, yeah, it's like a whole lot of shit to worry about before we get to.
You know, I just find it interesting that, you know, people would trip out over their kids is gay. Yeah. But but you all right for letting your 13, 14, 15-year-old son have female company with her door with the door closed. Mm-hmm. Now a lot of my homegirls they was mean as all get out with their daughters, and I have to remind them she's doing better than you.
Right. Oh, they hate you.
I was helping you in junior high school, you know, around some, and I know the type of whore that you was. She was with me. I'm sorry, I just had to put that joke in. But no, but just saying, but you treating your girls like a boy and you treating your boy like a girl.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen that and I'm sorry for cutting you off, it's just because it ties into what you're saying. There's some movie I just watched or something. I guess it was an old movie, Truth or Dare, where you're being forced to just be honest. If everyone was kind of put in that scenario with who they are and what they say, a lot of people will be a lot less toxic, because right now we're able to live with the understanding you don't know everything about me.
Yeah.
Like you know what? There's some things in my life that you don't know, right? Right? But you feel me on that, right? It's like, you know, and so we're able to create this mystique about ourselves. Whereas, you know, in my opinion, gay people are like the most brave of us all because they're exposing their inner self. You know, we're hiding who we are. We're like, I'm tough, you know, money, tough. You know, we do all these things in front of us to play like pawns.
Yeah.
Where the gay community is putting their queen right in the front.
Yeah.
And saying, now attack that because it's who I am. So I think just tying back into what you're saying, that I commend the gay community. You know, it's difficult. You know, like Dame said, I didn't always feel this way. I've matured to a point where I see the big picture. I think I have a good idea of the big picture. Honestly, I don't think.
And if I was to be honest with you, if, you know, like I would kind of say, especially and I think the Black gay community kind of don't give a shit about your opinions or whether you like me or this or this. I mean, because somewhere up in there, that's unfortunately that's the kind of sometimes the first place where you're gonna have to thicken up. I mean, but don't we all need that in life as men or even as women?
Yeah.
Period. Point. It's unfortunate. Hey, you just learned your lesson a different way. You just learned yours in a different area, but we all got to learn that same.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
I just really want us to stop looking at each other as other. You know what I mean? Like, I just really want us to stop looking at each other as other, because I think that's one of the things that's causing the divide, and it's hard to get the unity. And, you know, I had an interesting conversation with somebody the other day. They said a lot of times they talk about how, you know, Black trans women are the most endangered when it comes to like being killed and
when not receiving services, or being sex workers,
and violence against them and all of that. And they said it's crazy because they will publicize that to try to go after Dave, but they won't publicize that to really try to get them help and services. Like the white trans community will publicize that.
That used to be true in Los Angeles when I was sitting on different commission boards and recommendation boards. The reason why I ended up having to advocate for them because that community didn't send people to come sit on that board.
Yeah.
To actually speak up for
right.
For that community. And it was that because I was willing to advocate, but I would have preferred for them to
be able to advocate for
the 3, 4, 5, and I would have just, I would have just been the vote that would have pushed them over.
Yeah, so I want to talk about that, in regards to like, and this goes back to like all Black people should be protected, right? And this goes back to what you were saying, Ron, about like, I want all Black people to be okay. I don't give a fuck who you are. I want all Black people to be okay, and I don't want us to continue to let them be used as pawns for like the white trans agenda, right? Because I didn't see when the young lady was killed, was it Detroit last year? When she was jumped at the liquor store, the other young lady was jumped at the liquor store. I didn't see those white activists coming out for them then. I didn't see those activists coming out talking about how, but when it comes to Dave Chappelle and using it, well, he's bringing violence towards Black trans women. Like, if you feel that, why aren't you doing something about it outside of this? Like when that real violence is actually happening to them in real time.
Work.
Yeah, and also I was talking to somebody in the LGBTQ community about this because we've been having a ton of conversation, and they said it's funny that they kind of try to pose Black straight men as the adversary. They said it really is closeted gay men, because they said that's who perpetuate the violence against them, is closeted gay men who don't want people to find out
what they're doing,
about who or what they are and what they're doing. So they're like, even if they're pretending to be straight men, that's not a straight man doing that.
Right.
That's a closeted gay man doing this shit, who's afraid to deal with his shit.
Fighting with his own life.
Yeah, fighting with his own life, fighting with his own demons and shit. Right. But that gets turned on us.
Like it's all,
and even in media.
That's interesting.
Even in media, there was a time where it was just like, and it's funny because I remember I was like last year, there was a time last year I was like, at this point in time, it was like a Venn diagram of how Black men were everybody's enemy at this one particular moment. I remember the Jewish people was coming after Black men, and the LGBT community was coming after Black men. Black women was coming after Black men. Like at this one moment, and it was around the Juicy Smollett time. It was when Jesse
Juicy Smollett.
When Jesse came out with his
which lie of apology?
Was a lie. It wasn't the apology. It was when he came out with the initial lie. And I don't know. I know Sam remembers this because we talked about this on Uncouth at the time.
Right.
So the thing came out. Me, Sam, and Quincy was on the panel, and with some women too, because Channing, I think Sheila was on the panel, and we all was like, "Look, this story sounds fishy as fuck." Like, I was like,
Chicago.
A lot of us been quiet about it because some of this shit don't fucking add up. Just
snow, that kind of cold, and we're walking the
just on some black folk shit. We just like certain shit didn't add up.
I think the nigga walking back home with the noose around his neck did it for me.
Why would you not have the food delivered to your room?
Right.
Instead of you in a snowstorm, huh?
Right. But so remember, all of that happened. And I remember there was an article in Vibe that came out and was talking about straight Black men being homophobic because we weren't backing him in his story. Like we was being quiet and wasn't supporting him. I was like, us not supporting him had shit to do with his sexuality. Us supporting him had to do with this story sound like some bullshit.
And we can smell
like, and that's it. But this whole fucking think piece was about how, you know, if he was a straight man and he said this happened to him, we would automatically believe him. I'm like, no, because Kanye said at 2 a.m. I was out in Chicago getting some Subway. We all gonna say, the fuck was he doing out in Chicago in the winter getting some goddamn Subway, and you're famous too. Rich, like, nah, this shit just didn't add up. But that was one of those things in that moment where I was like, damn, at some point, black straight men have been everybody's fucking enemy. And the crazy thing is, like, we ain't even the ones with the power.
Correct.
Nobody is pointing at the motherfuckers with the power.
Well,
they pointing at us,
right?
And like the people with the power is actually legislating shit against y'all.
Correct.
The people with the power is actually stopping y'all from going to bathrooms. Like, but y'all over here fucking with us. Right. We ain't got the power. I'm chilling. You know what I'm saying? But so even that, I felt like, yo, this shit was some orchestrated shit.
Narrative was being
the narrative was really been set up, and it was some really well orchestrated shit. So I saw it, I was like, this shit is too clear, because that's what Mark Lamont Hill had said something about the two-state compromise in Israel.
Correct.
And they're like, oh, you said that, you anti-Semitic. Even though if you watch what he said wasn't anti-Semitic at all. But he was against the normal, you know, what they said. But so he got kicked off of CNN for that. Like, he still ain't been on CNN, if y'all ain't noticed. He ain't been on CNN since. So that happened, and then they got Ilhan Omar too at this time. Like it was a whole bunch. Like, it was going on. I was like, yo, that's wild that black folks are being set up to be everybody's enemies in this moment when we still aren't the ones who have the power. Right. Because the LGBT community was against a lot of black folks, and that's why I mentioned Ilhan, because it was a black woman too. They was going at the what they call the squad in the Senate. Hey, Jackie Chandra.
In this movie of life, though, in America, someone has to be the villain. And America's society, including black men, have decided that it's okay that we're going to be that person.
Yeah, because we do that to each other.
It's like we took the Mamba mentality. You know how Kobe, he couldn't become the good guy. So he's like, you know what, I'm going to run with that bad guy role. That's what we're doing here in America for us as black men and as a society as a whole. Everyone is okay with black men being in that position. Yeah, and until we change it as black men, this comes back to that, you know, pull yourself up. But we do have to address, you know, the harms we inflict on each other. And if we can just start doing that mentally first, like just treat each other. Hey, brother, how you doing? Good morning. How are you? It doesn't matter what you believe in, your preference. I see your hat. I may not agree with your lifestyle. That has nothing to do with, brother. How you doing? You good? All right, brother. You have a good day. See you next time. And that's just that. Yeah. Move on. You know, they start showing each other love mentally and just verbally. And I think that's what can be sort of the one thing that can reverberate amongst black people, is just how we talk to each other, how we look at each other. Like you think about it, you see somebody, a young kid, you might be in a gang or something, you know, we even, like, I have to literally catch myself. Like, I got to get out of that I'm watching you mode to, hey, young man, how you doing? You know, hey, good. You need anything? All right, cool. You know, and just seeing that, I think we can progress and move forward. But it starts with us. We got to be able to see each other, all of us, in all our different ways, mannerisms, anything that's different about us, the one thing that's unique and special.
We got to see each other.
We got to see each other.
Oh, man. Cameron, let's get your last words, brother.
Man, that was beautiful. I mean, what you just said, Ron, it's like that, seeing each other, but I've been preaching this whole time. Like, I'm grateful for y'all for providing this forum. Like, I don't get this often, and I think this is what needs to be seen. This is literally how we unify ourselves, you know? So I'm grateful, and I appreciate you, Dan.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on. Sam, last words, brother?
Man, I'm up here battling this damn dog, man. He chewing my finger while I'm trying to talk and shit. No worries, man.
All right. Hugh, last words, brother.
Just continue to grow as people, and what we don't know, try to learn it so we can understand it, and then because people only fear what they don't know. So, like I said, you know, the more that we educate ourselves about a particular group or culture, or we're around and able to socialize and learn more, and then in the end, you just realize that there's just another black man sitting across of you. You won't even think that he's even gay. Won't even cross your mind.
Shit, bro. Any last words?
Thank you for holding this space, for having this great conversation. It's been a pleasure meeting all of you gentlemen on this panel tonight. I always find it more important for me. I don't always need to know the answers, but I'm always willing to be a part of the process and helping to find them. So I just wanted to end on that.
Hey man, I really want to thank all of y'all for joining. I really want to thank y'all for this conversation. We went a little longer than I expected, but I feel like we couldn't have ended it no earlier. You know what I'm saying? It kind of played out organically the way it was supposed to. And, you know, I think we could have more of these conversations, not just centered around sexuality. We should have more of these conversations just centered around blackness together. You know what I mean? And I appreciate y'all coming on. I appreciate y'all candidness tonight. And I appreciate y'all willingness to really step in and have this conversation, man. Love all you guys. And until next time, everybody in the comments, we appreciate y'all. Everybody that was watching the whole night, everybody that supported us. Make sure you share the show. Let some other people see it. Let some other brothers watch it. If you feel like you know some brothers that need to see the show and watch this show to probably help them out, please go ahead. Do it. Show them the show. Let them know what's up. Uncouth Radio, we are out of here. Until next time, man. We'll see you.